those into the forum. And we had about 40 IRC channels, which in a lot of them was someone going, hey, is anyone there? The person leaves, because obviously generally with IRC you've not got a persistent connection, and then 3 days later someone going, yes, what was your question? Oh, you've gone, sorry. Not really the best experience. We're also using Matrix a lot more, which is generally persistent. That's working well, but you know, most of the discussion we're really trying to push into the forum. For anyone that's been at the booth, you'll see me trying to push you at the forum as well. And it's worked. This works really well. We did loads of events last year, which is brilliant, right? We were obviously here last year. Well, I think Greg Sutcliffe was actually doing this presentation last year and went, hey, we've just launched the forum, here's some graphs. Let's see how it goes in the year. And I'm pleased to say it's been really good. Yeah, loads of events, don't need to read them out, all that. What I'm going to say is that, so meetup.com, which is where we sort of advertise the primary Ansible meetups, we had 38 different meetup events happen just last year across 13 cities. And since we're here in Europe, I'm going to say Benelux, Dresden, Hamburg, London, Munich and Zurich, which is great, right? These are all fully community maintained. They're not put on by Red Hat, organised by Red Hat. They're put on by folks like you. If you're like, my city isn't on there, but I think we've got a place we could do something, or oh, I wonder if I can get involved with this, or I'd like to know more, come and chat with me or anyone else on the Ansible booth. We'd love to help you get set up. Unsurprisingly, we have a meeting toolkit which will sort of bootstrap a load of this. It won't find you a venue, which is generally the bit that requires a bit of work, but you know, we can help. On the right hand side here, you can see a screenshot of the forum. This is the events page. And you can see we're right here. If you look on the second row there, that starts on Monday the 3rd of February. For those that are with it today, you'll notice that's where we are right now. There's a little orange bit that says Config Management Camp. And then on Wednesday we have a blue bit that says Community Summit, which is happening here. On Friday the 21st we have a meetup in Minneapolis. There's weekly community working group meetings on Wednesdays. That green is really not visible, but that'll be the Docs working group, and I think the AWS and the AWS office hours as well. So we've really tried to establish the forum as the place to go to find all this information. There's probably loads of events I don't know about. Stick them on the forum, create a post, put a little markup in for meetups, and then we'll let everyone know about them. So, I've been talking a lot about the forum. I'm going to talk some more about the forum. So, before today, who knew about the Ansible forum? Show of hands. That's maybe 70%, good stuff. Who had already used the Ansible forum before today? That's maybe 50–60%. Okay, that's good. But I did promise the audience participation would be gentle after. So this is, you know, talked a little bit about voting. So one of the cool features of Git Discourse is it has built-in voting. Before we sort of played around with GitHub thumbs up, thumbs down, or comments, it was a painful experience. This left-hand vote is, should we remove IRC references? So this was the discussion that we had around the reducing fragmentation in communication. So some people say we've removed it all, some people say just remove certain bits, and a lot of people saying I don't care. That is a really important thing to capture, because we know we want to understand sort of, you know, are these things that people care about, do they matter? On the right hand side, we've got an example of a vote from the steering committee. So they're the elected sort of governance board for some of the upstream rule setting and procedures around the Ansible community collection. So this would be replicated below with a steering committee vote and then a community vote. I had a quick look through. We had 50 topics with votes on last year, you know, 1 a week roughly. I think it's been really great to see the amount of community participation as we sort of, you know, empower everyone else to drive the direction of this. Again, I'm just one person, right? Yes, I'm looking, I get paid by Red Hat to do this stuff, but again, you're the users, and we need your feedback, so it's worked really well. On the bottom right of the screen, you'll notice it says community links, ansible.com, documentation, open forum. When you log into the forum, that'll be on the left-hand side, so it's a quick way of seeing what stuff is open for discussion at the moment. So for the 20-30% of you that haven't used the forum, this is Discourse. Might look very familiar because quite a lot of projects use it, especially Fedora, where we've copied some of this from. On the left-hand side, you can see some of the main categories. So we've got getting help, project discussions, and our international communities, right? You know, we've got Spanish, Portuguese, and Norwegian there. And then on the right-hand side, we've got some the getting help section, and we've got the pin votes pin topics for how to find resources and how to use this area. And then project discussions is where all the sort of how do we move this project forward, what are your ideas, all the sort of feature request type discussions go on, with both the technical and the procedural and the governance, which are all very active areas. Right, another show of hands, who knows the bullhorn? Good, good. Who's subscribed to the bullhorn? We have stickers if you don't remember. So the bullhorn, there we go, a bit of audience participation, excellent. So the bullhorn is like the weekly Ansible community newsletter, right? The word community is very important there. It might happen to be sent out by someone at Red Hat, but most of the news articles are from folks like you, right? It's where we provide the ability for you folks to provide a steady stream of cool updates and little ideas or discussions of what's happening. The reason we do this weekly is we want that steady flow. If this was monthly, we go, oh, are you ready to go in the January 25 edition? And like, well, I've not quite got my wording polished. This is just a steady stream of consciousness. I mean, we'll fix up the typos, that's fine. But it's all markdown, right? You know, we're using Matrix as our communication channel. You ping our little news bot in the social channel, put some markdown in, and it will end up on the forum, which again is markdown. So we have this really nice interface, right? And most of us are used to using markdown because it's what GitHub uses. So what I ask is please, subscribe to the bullhorn if you're not. It's only one thing you need to look at a week, and we'll provide you some good summary. But also to share the news, right? Are there other events happening that we don't know about? Are there some discussions happening? I mean, obviously a lot of these things are linked back to the forum post itself, but there could be other things going on, so let us know. Talked a little bit about events before. Now we've got them on the forum. It's again our single source of truth. What we want to whenever the question from you folks is, where should I go to find out? Generally the answer should be the forum or the Ansible doc site. And it's working. So let's talk about graphs. This is a very nice graph. It goes up and to the right. This particular one is page views on the forum for the past, just over a year. So what it's saying is more people are looking at pages on the forum. Excellent. It's completely meaningless. This is what we call a vanity metric, right? If you look at the projects and go, oh, download stats or stars on GitHub, like, yeah, people are using it, but I expect it to be. I don't know if this is humans engaging stuff or if it's some AI script scraping all our content or something else, right? We've got no idea. This is a good graph. Down and to the right, maybe a little bit more controversial. This is the time to response in hours. So this is for the forum, so this is the amount of time from someone starting a new thread to the first reply. So about a year ago, on average, 200 hours. 6 months ago, 100 hours. Currently, it's within the day. These are averages, right? That means there's a lot of stuff happening, maybe minutes, or low number of hours. There's probably a lot of stuff that's longer. This is my favourite graph when I was digging together to put this presentation together. What this shows to me is that we not only have people posting and using the platform that we put together, but we have engagement. That's the difficult thing normally to measure, but I've got a graph. It's got a really nice trend line. And when we're back here next year, I'd be interested to see, maybe it'll just be, I was going to say flatline, that's probably the wrong term, just a little tiny oscillation at the bottom, right? And again, this is all due to you folks, right? This isn't Red Hat responding to stuff. This is people helping each other out. The technology behind here really helps. We've got auto tagging depending on keywords and a load of other features, but it's great. And also you've got to remember there's a load of forum posts that will never get replies because they're like, hey, this is a meetup. Well, no one's ever going to reply to the meetup thread. So maybe we can look at filtering those things out in the future, but really happy with that. So, survey. Another little show of hands. Who participated in the Ansible survey last year? So maybe just under half of you. Cool. We haven't done an Ansible survey for a few years. The last one we did was, I think, 3 years ago for the docs update. 1,117 people took time out of their schedule to go and give us some feedback. I'm absolutely amazed with that. Because it wasn't just sort of button clicking, there was areas to go and write at the end of each section, such as, say, networking, dev tools, community, Windows to provide some written feedback. And we got, I've not printed it out, but it's like tens and tens of pages provided all that feedback as well, which is brilliant. I could stand here and show you a load of graphs, up and to the right graphs of like awesome things that we've done, and say the Ansible community is brilliant. But you know that, you're here. Also, it's not really very productive. So I'm going to just highlight some of the feedback we've seen. Just grab that. Highlight some of the feedback we've seen and spot the trends that's helped us sort of shape what we want to do here at Config Management Camp, Red Hat Summit, and also more importantly, what we want to do in the community next year. So this graph was interesting to me, maybe not to everyone else, but the question here was what tool or editor do you primarily use to write your Ansible content? With a massive 46% of you say you use VS Code with the Ansible extension. The third bar there is VS Code without the extension, so that's 11%, right? So that's basic maths. 57%, there we go. No? Yeah, 57% of you use VS Code. That's a load of people. Vim, Team Vim here, very happy to see that still in at about 30% there, and then just a massive drop off. So that was really interesting because Red Hat's made a bet as a community on VS Code extension, and it's good to see that all that work's paying off and people are using it. As someone in the 28%, and I'm not sure if we've got any Emacs users in here, but for everyone else, I want you to be included in this, right? So the VS Code extension uses a thing called the language server. That exact same bit of code, that plugin, is available in Vim, NeoVim, Emacs. Don't think it works in Python, but I'm not sure. But it's available in a number of editors, right? Because underneath it all the VS Code extension is a graphical wrapper over our underlying tools, such as Ansible Lint, hopefully Ansible Test in the future, and some other tools, right? So even if you're not using that editor, you've still got access to those tools. And they're the same tools that hopefully you're using in your GitHub or GitLab pipeline, maybe even in your Git feature checks and whatever other provisioning and testing you're doing. So that was really cool. So I just said that the VS Code extension is made up of, uses various different tools. To make this tool a bit simpler, just imagine the word Ansible dash in front of most of these things, right? We're not talking about creator sign or tox as Python, we're talking about Ansible creator, Ansible sign, Ansible tox. So just focusing on the purple line, which is the do you regularly use this tool? Most of you, which is probably no surprise, use Ansible Lint. Some use Molecule, a few use Boulder, and then no one really knows anything. And if you focus on the red line, which is the unaware of, once we get to Ansible Builder, vast majority aren't aware of any of this stuff. Well, what have we done wrong there? That feels like something we need to fix. Is this just a promotion issue? Is it that we're spending our time writing tools that no one needs or knows how to use? A few months previous to the forum, and one of the reasons we have this question in, on the forum we asked this question in a slightly different way. This is one page, it's just my projector's not big enough to fit it on. So we're going to ask what tooling do you use? And it's roughly the same pattern. You've got Ansible in second. Slightly higher here, it's 85%. The forum is generally more technical people, they're more generally aware of the tooling because they're subscribed to the bullhorn. But it's exactly the same pattern. So as I mentioned in the forum, in the survey we did, you might remember there's a section for freeform text. We had loads of responses in there. And it's very easy to look at that and go, I see one person saying something, this confirms my preconceptions. Well, you know, we had 1,000 responses and probably 600 or 700 written responses for each area. So this is just a summary of some of the bits we got from the DevTools feedback. There are multiple tools with no clear use case. Everything sort of does the same. There are too many options, especially for newcomers. How do you structure a project? Chaos ensures no standards in place. I don't even know how to interpret the feedback. We've sort of failed a bit here. I think we've sort of thrown out loads of different tools and not necessarily had things that are set up in the right way. And I think this is something that we're really going to need to focus on this year. We've got a few ideas, but this is going to be one of the main topics that, you know, maybe we'll have some Q&A at the end, or your feedback, but also going to dig in on Wednesday. Which sort of brings us into, well, where do we want to go next? Well, let's look back, right? What did we learn in 2024? We learned that the Ansible community is great. Hopefully most of us realise that already. We spent a lot of time reducing fragmentation, especially around our communication channels, right? Because remember, we sort of moved away from IRC and Matrix and sort of doubled down on the forum, built up a huge community around there, got a lot more people involved, and that's really paid off. The survey result, and again, 1,000 people responding, so I think we can sort of trust the general feedback there. So it confirmed what we thought, but maybe a bit stronger than we thought, was that we don't really have a story around how we create, test and deploy, especially around collections. We've seen this result in very unopinionated documentation, or actually worse, conflicting documentation. We know there's some part of the Ansible docs website say, you should go and do this thing. Follow this other link and like, here's something completely different, right? If you're getting started with Ansible, we failed you before we've sort of started. These are all fixable things, right? So we've ended up with confusion, inconsistency, and therefore lower quality content. So we know that reducing fragmentation normally helps. We just saw that with communication. So let's do the same with the tooling. So how are we going to go and do this? Well, we're not going to make this community's problem. We're going to ask for your help and get your ideas. But you know, we've got some changes we're going to do inside Red Hat. So as most of you know, like I led the Ansible community engineering team, and our job was sort of to focus on supporting folks to do good things with Ansible. A lot of the time was around collection work. Excuse me. So supporting the getting collections done, getting all that into the Ansible project, and helping all the other Ansible ecosystem projects. But there's another separate team at Red Hat who focused on the ISV partners. So that's part of the supported offering, and their job was to help people write good quality collections, get it into automation hub. But we know that ISV partners require sort of a bit more opinionated documentation and workflows that sort of just work, something that covers 80–90%. If you step back from it though, that's the same thing that the community needs, right? Especially for those just getting started. We need that really strongly opinionated bit. And sometimes that feels a bit weird coming from the open source world, where you like to give people options and there's choices. Those choices and options should still be there, right? We still have Matrix and IRC. We're just saying, if you're getting started, go to the forum. What we're thinking is we sort of just replicate that here. So some of you might know where I'm going with this. So we merged the Ansible community and partner engineering team. Well, this lovely thing in the middle, force multiply, for those of you that have chatted with Red Hat before, is one of our favourite terms. It's like, how do we become the author of the machine? How do I put some effort in that everyone here can benefit, right? If I sat here and improved some testing or some documentation, that scales really, really well, because everyone that goes and looks at that box can come and help it. I really appreciate people coming out, taking time to come and listen to me today and understand things, but this doesn't scale. If I empower you and educate you, and you provide some feedback and you take that back to your organisations and friends and stuff, that's how we sort of empower and move all this stuff forward. So like I said, at the end of last year, we merged the Ansible community and Ansible partner engineering team, because we have this common mission. We want to make it easier for people to write content. We don't know exactly how yet. We've got some ideas, but again, you're the users, we want your feedback. So let's bring that back to what we're going to do, right? So over the next 2 days, we've got loads of Ansible talks, which is great. We've got a really strong team though around the different developer tooling. There's a lot of different talks on each of those individual components. We've got a lot of talks that are far more opinionated than we would have done before, right? We've got things on "You're doing roles wrong," nice clickbaity title by Tim Atnell there, as you move from roles into collections. We've got things about don't just copy and paste. There's a lot of bit there to sort of help you write better quality content. But with each of these things, have a little think, well, what's the next step from this? How do we make it even easier for yourselves, your colleagues, and other people starting with Ansible? On Wednesday, in this room, we're going to have Ansible Contributor Summit, where we're going to have a really detailed discussion on this stuff. We're going to go, we have all these different tools. Do we want to go pick one? Should Ansible test be the interface for everything, or is Ansible linked? Do you need Ansible Galaxy in it that creates you a template Galaxy? Do we need Ansible Creator that creates you a collection template? Do we need the collection template that's a template of a collection? Do we need this upper random thing that is also a template? Even for the simplest part of that, we've got many different tools. And all of them do stuff in a different way. And all of them have got slightly different files. We don't even yet have a consistent GitHub action that's used within Ansible engineering. And therefore in the community I know we've got like much, real variation in what's been done and tested. Until we can sort of articulate that properly, we can't test it properly. And therefore we can't use stuff. All the stuff's working today, you know. Ansible is however many billions of modules, right? But you know, we want to make this stuff easier. So we're going to be working a lot more closely with DevTools folks, and on Wednesday afternoon we're going to have an Instruct Lab, which if you connect to Wi-Fi here, you'll be able to run in your web browser and sort of run through and give some feedback. So yeah, that's sort of the rough agenda that we've got for Wednesday. So notice we start at 10 o'clock. That's because we want to give folks a bit of time to get in here, but we just have to general Q&A, right, before we sort of go in. Like, this event is for you. I want to provide the time for you to ask really, really complicated questions. I'll be joined by smarter people, as I said, I'm manager. You know, we've got loads of engineers here, product managers and other folks to be able to help out with all of this. If you're not registered, don't worry, just sort of turn up or be in this room, you know where to find us. So Lucas is here, he's going to be talking about building the Ansible community. And we should be talking about how to become a contributor to Ansible. Martin from Ansible Cause here is going to be delving into the details of handlers. We'll be talking about how to introduce collections. And then David tomorrow is going to be joining us remotely as he talks about our, so Ansible runs Ansible. Ansible records Ansible, sorry, with a little demo of that. Break for lunch. And then when we get back at 1:30, we'll do the DevTools workshop. So as I said, it sort of runs in your web browsers. You don't need to worry about installing anything, polluting your system with random Python files, anything. Interactive thing, running your web browser, all nice and safe. Give some feedback, not just on the lab, but so what was the experience for you, right? The technology is there to solve a problem. And the problem is you're trying to automate something. You're trying to get out of doing this really boring sysadmin thing. So how we sort of move forward with that. But through all of Wednesday, you'll be very glad to know it's not me standing talking at you, it's going to be a lot more discussion, right? So the way we do this is through the day we'll have a HackMD, which is just like if you ever use like Google Docs, it's similar to that. It's all open source, so we'll be able to just capture your feedback and you'll be able to throw comments in, a lot of discussions and sort of see what makes sense to move forward. Cool. So I really want to say thank you everyone for taking the time to join us. In particular, I really want to say thank you to Carol Chen, Greg Sutcliffe and Leo, who even though aren't sort of full-time on Ansible have been doing a massive job to help us out, and in particular Don, who's a couple of doors down, because without him we wouldn't be doing it this year. I want to thank all the other organisers, the Cfgmgmtcamp, and especially you folks. This is something different we're doing this year. That is a fedora, which is hopefully you recognise as the Red Hat logo. That is, I think, 200 pieces of Lego. I have a bag with 200 pieces of Lego and a link to a PDF downstairs. So, to encourage you to get onto the forum, I have here and downstairs a little QR code. If you scan this QR code, the most impressive thing is you'll be taken to the forum, which I keep on talking about because I really want everyone to be on there because it's great. But you'll get a all digital, I attended Config Management Camp 2025 badge for your forum profile, which is good. Oh, and I've got one set flicker that you can win. So, some people have signed up so far, some, not everyone has, so please take the time to go and do that. I will go notify whoever's won via a private message on the forum at tomorrow afternoon. We're going to close entries at 2 PM tomorrow. And then you'll be able to collect it from me. If you want terms and conditions, they're just over there, because Red Hat made me do that. But I really appreciate everyone's time. So just to recap, we've done some great stuff last year. The reducing fragmentation really pays off. So let's continue that, reduce some more fragmentation and get opinionated. So how do we do this? Got a QR code, join the forum, get involved with the discussion. Hope that you can join us on Wednesday in this room. Link there, red.ht, Red Hat short URL, Ansible-contributors-summit. There's a link to the HackMD. As I said, everything we do will end up on the forum, so we're going to have all the links and all the other bits on there. But make your voice heard, right? Share your experiences, share what works, what doesn't. I want to know the good, the bad, the ugly. I love it when people come up and go, I use Ansible, it just worked. Brilliant. Makes me really happy. Makes me feel like it's been a good trip. I can't act on that. I can't take it home and sort of share that information. So yeah, that's where we are. So yeah, thank you very much again. Really appreciate your time. There's some links there, and again for the 97th time, all these forums links will be put on the forum. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, folks. I have time for some questions. Okay.
Where can I find the roadmap for the Ansible course?
Martin, the question was where can we find the roadmap for Ansible Core?
Should be the documentation. Ansible documentation.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you search Ansible Core roadmap, I'm pretty sure the RC files are called roadmap and they've got the information. It'll only be sort of the current or maybe the next version. We don't sort of forecast stuff out, the world changes too quickly. Yeah. Any other questions? Anyone totally disagree with what I said and find the dev tool stuff works perfectly well? That would be great because then I can go do some other stuff. Cool, okay, right, fixing the house, fixing the right problem, that's good.
So did you have a contributor diversity graph somewhere in the beginning or not? Because I missed like the 3 minutes, so I'm not sure if it was there or not.
In what sense?
Contribution diversity, if it's like how many people from Red Hat and non-Red Hat.
Oh, I see. For collections, the vast analysing collections, that's right. Depending how you count it, I could put up a graph that would show the majority of our collection stuff comes from people not employed by Red Hat.
And for core?
I mean, it depends from project, right? For core, probably is mainly Red Hat. For the upstream documentation, so if you just shut that off. It really depends on repo to repo, right? For Galaxy, it's mainly Red Hat. There's very few people using Ansible Galaxy and contributing back or making changes, right? It's not that type of project. For documentation, it's probably quite high. For some of the collections, a lot of them are 100% community, and some are like the Windows and I think the AWS collection are almost 50-50. And there's a lot of work going in by everyone there, and that's great. I do have an old graph. If you want to find me a little bit later on, I'll dig that out. But yeah, good question. Any other questions? Cool, excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, folks.
Daar aan de zijkant zijn we naast hier aan de rand van de bar.
Yeah, just try this.
No, I need none of these. Sure.
Depends on how much power you have. Depending if we have time.
6:30.
6:30, and we are down here at 4. That would give us an hour. 2 hours.
Yeah, because we know people are going to get back to the hotel, drop everything, freshen up.
Yeah, but from here, from dinner, I don't go home.
Okay, let's start.
Just make sure just make sure that I got some beer in the car. You're going to do the president?
Yeah, next.
One is going here. One is going in here.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it's a wrong resolution or something?
Yeah, it looks a bit lowerish.
Oh. Wow. Went down to 640, 480?
Yeah, or 320.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that for years.
Yeah. 48. Yeah. Okay. 6:30 you said, right? Dus dan hebben we nog een beetje weer opdoen met that. Oh. He already approved going to optimal.
What you
Well, they have, I think, 2,000 beers.
Yeah.
How big's the car?
No, I'm not going to buy that much.
One of each,
Well,
please.
it's just the two of us in your car, so we can bring a lot. We just fold down the bench in the back.
Yes, we can bring a lot, but I think, no, I'm just going to go for
See your car on the wheels.
Yeah. No, I'm just going to go for a case of, I think, he kind of in a,
Oh, that sounds like a good idea.
that's a darker beer.
Okay.
But I think the case is a bit big for any traveling arrangement.
Yeah, well,
I think you need more
I was on Ryanair on the way over, so.
You were lucky that you bring it.
Well, I didn't fly into the main airport, there's only 2 airports.
Ah, yes, probably.
Yeah, I flew into one that doesn't have a train station.
It doesn't have a train station. How did you get here? By taxi?
2-hour bus. Yeah, I'll get the Eurostar, so it'll actually be quicker even
Yeah.
than Manchester.
Frank just sent me an email.
Sorry?
Frank just sent me an email. Our friend.
Ah, your friend. Yes.
Our friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
He said, piss off and do what I say.
No, it's about Friday. He can't drive us to Germany. His Tesla. the
It's
new
broken.
one. No, it's not broken, but it doesn't have winter tires.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
the
in
idea
Germany,
is,
they
the idea is to deliver the car in January without winter tires.
They did
You
that
couldn't expect to have them.
They did that for me in November, and I told them, make sure that they are, that it's equipped with winter tires. No, they didn't.
And we told him, he knew this when it was delivered. We told him, call now. Apparently, can't be done. So somebody else has to drive, Vincent or me.
When they're driving on fossil fuel.
Yeah, but,
To get there in one
yeah, but I don't know if his car is available.
Oh, yeah, it could be that it's one thing.
Yeah, if his wife's it might be the same for me. Well, I think mine's okay. Thing is, I can't replace full battery because I have to go bring Pim the helmet and come back. So 30%.
Yeah, and you don't get it quickly enough.
Yeah, I have to stop for sure, so stop soon.
Most people do.
Do think that. Yeah, they ask me that.
I know you.
Yeah, specifically, I've got a backlight.
Let's try this one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's all over Red Hat, all over.
Oh, that's in there.
Just a Red Hat accelerator.
Ah.
It's another group of Red Hat with people. Well, somebody said, well, these are people that are considered to be high technical. So I just don't understand why they want me. Yeah, sometimes I say, what I do stuff with computers.
Yeah.
What stuff? Difficult stuff. I can try to explain. Most people don't understand, so why not?
Yeah, works. Okay. Machine actually works. Yeah, I'm seeing your screen.
That's good. Are you ready, Phillips? I can introduce you when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this.
I'll stand here and I'll run the camera.
How terminal is nice. Currently I'm using Western or electric.
Yeah. Ja, zo was het.
Ik heb nog bij iemand dat ik een USB charger had. Dan pak ik met er ook in pluggen.
Ja.
Ik zit wel in.
Dat was ik al.
Ik ben een oude mens.
Ja, een beetje. Dan word je laptops houden.
Dat wordt er maar ook niet.
Yeah, I'll just wait.
Uitsteken.
Heeft mij was al dat.
Ja, dan kan ik nu een nieuwe aankopen.
En dan denk ik amper gebruikt.
Oh, I can go.
Op 70%.
Ik kan nu wel een nieuwe afgesloten.
Ja,
Dit is er nog niet.
nee, maar. Denk je, lang?
Met de tegenbomen en zo.
Ja.
Ja, zo was dit wel duurder dan de bomen.
Ik dacht, dan mooi bijna mensen.
Ja, dat is
Yeah. Yeah, then you got how can I be from
Nee. Nee, je moet even inderdaad denken op zelf. Nee, ik moet gewoon een week gaan. Dan ben ik mijn auto van oppassen. Dus je denkt aan de woensdag. Nee, dat mag het. En dan hebben mijn kinderen zijn toch al bij mij. Zo is het inderdaad gewoon een opgekomen. Maar lijkt me dat wel interessant. Ja, wat mag wat data eigenlijk ook? Oh, ik heb er gereageerd op data. Ja, als u dat zijkant.
Which parts are moved on wipes. But also be interesting to do the demo because So I
think Mark needs to switch on your microphone because you're not.
I don't know how it is, so
should I start?
yeah. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, that little box is on, I guess.
I put it on mute, so it,
Ah, you put it on mute.
Ah, okay, oh, you know,
as if I talk to you, that's what
Yeah.
everyone has to
Exactly.
We okay to start?
Yeah.
We'll both get it on you.
Cool. All right, well, we'll start the next session. Felix Fontaine is one of our steering committee members, so quite really glad he was able to join us today and share his expertise on managing secrets in Ansible. So over to you, Felix.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And thanks to all of you for coming to my talk. I want to talk about managing or using SOPs to manage secrets in Ansible. First, well, I want to do some introductions about like who I am, what SOPs is, what Ansible is. I guess you know the answer to what Ansible is. Most of you, I hope. Otherwise, it will be interesting. Then I want to tell you something about how to manage secrets in Ansible. I mean, there's Ansible Vault, which probably most of you have seen. Some, or probably many of you have used. Maybe, maybe not. I'll also tell you about how other secret providers, like HashiCorp Vault, or as OpenBOA it's called, the free version. I wasn't aware of. I heard that there was a fork, but I never actually learned its name until today. And other services can be used in Ansible. And then I want to tell you how SOPs can be used in Ansible, mainly with the community SOPs collection, and show you some demos on how to do certain things, which are, I think, like the most common things you want to do. And then we have time for some questions and answers. Okay, so who am I? I'm mostly a software engineer who also manages some Linux servers. In the previous company, there were some more. In the current company, I just changed jobs like 4 months ago, so I haven't really started with that much. But I have also my own servers. I'm using Ansible to manage them, so that's why I'm also interested in Ansible. I've been an Ansible user for quite some time. I tried to figure out when exactly I started. I think it was in 2015, might have also been late 2014, I'm not sure anymore. I've been a contributor to Ansible for also quite some time, starting with the obligatory bug fix, which you notice something annoys you, then you fix it, and then you end up doing some more stuff over time. Since the split of the huge Ansible repo into collections and Ansible core, I also started becoming a collection co-maintainer or maintainer for some collections. Probably the most famous one, which if you use Ansible, you've definitely seen it in general. I also ended up on the steering Ansible community. I think the official name is Ansible Engineering Community Steering, or is it Community Engineering Steering Committee? I'm not sure. It's like this huge name, which usually just calls Steering Committee, which mostly looks at or after the big collections, Community General, Community Network, and the Ansible Community Package, and some more or less other things, but yeah, depends on how much influence we have in some other parts. Then for SOPs, I got interested or learned about it in end of 2019, beginning of 2020 by reviewing a pull request for a lookup. And then I got interested, tried it out myself, and yeah, well, started using it myself, and that's how I also got a bit more interested in it. I've started contributing to SOPs itself as well in 2020 roughly, and then a couple of years later, in August 2023 I think, I became even a co-maintainer for SOPs. Good, so let me first start with what is SOPs. It started as an internal Mozilla tool. I looked a bit at the history when preparing the slides. Apparently it started around 2016 it was an internal tool originally. They used it to manage their own, to manage configuration for their DevOps work. It's SOPs is an abbreviation for secret operations. It's also called like an interactively or interactive encrypted file editor, because you can use it to edit encrypted files or encrypted structured files. I'll get to that more later. It handles structured data like YAML files, but also JSON, INI, or END files, or binary data. And I'll say a bit more about structured on the next slide. You can basically have access control to who can decrypt files based on basically per file. It usually makes sense to, you have a configuration file, zops.yaml, which allows you to define based on regular expressions, like which files have which people, which people have access to which files, basically. One problem was that the project, it was, well, public available, but the problem was that some of the people working on it left Mozilla. Then also the Mozilla employees who were working on it, they didn't have much time anymore for it. So especially in 2021-22, not much happened anymore. It looked a bit dead, unfortunately. Then some people try to liberate it in a sense. The problem was that as a Mozilla project, it seems that they have some very high requirements for external people being involved as maintainers or even release it. Apparently that's doesn't seem to be easily possible at all. So it had to go away from Mozilla. And some people managed to move it to the CNCF as a sandbox project. And it finally got moved there like in the mid of 2023, I would say. Then some people started working on it again. And then also I ended up, they asked me if I also want to help because I did several contributions, so I also got involved at that point. Okay, so a bit more about the important parts, namely what exactly it does encrypt. If you look at structured data, it usually encrypts only the values and comments, but not the keys. The idea is that usually the keys are the names of the variables which you use in Ansible, if you use it with Ansible, but similar for other technologies. Usually you want to know if you have a secret in which file you can find it, so you can just grab for it. Because it's not encrypted, you can find it. But the values are usually should be encrypted. Comments are a bit of a discussion. I mean, I think the main argument for encrypting comments was that often you comment out parts of the config, and you rather want to be the whole comment encrypted than accidentally seeing some secret in a comment. So the original choice was to just encrypt all the comments as well. I mentioned access control earlier. I mentioned like who has access to a file that's managed by identities. It's not like it doesn't have to be a person. It can also it usually depends what it is. You can use PGP or H public keys. These can be associated usually to persons, but they can also be like automated processes. You can use HashiCorp's Vault's transit secret engine. I don't know if you can also use OpenBOA. I haven't tried it, so no idea. I don't also know if anyone tried it. Maybe it just works, maybe not. I'm not sure how compatible they are. You can also use some cloud-based KMSs to access or as basically identities. I think I'm not really using clouds myself, so I never tried these parts. I think the idea is basically that you can encrypt things so that the cloud services can automatically decrypt it using the keys stored safely in the cloud. And there's also Shamir's secret sharing implemented, so that you can have like interesting combinations. For example, you can make like 3 groups of identities. and then require that you need an identity out of 2 different of the groups. Doesn't matter which of the 3 that you need to be able to decrypt it. Depending on whatever your use case is or how complex you want to do it, it offers you a lot of different possibilities to configure access. I mean, for me personally, and for the small or rather small deployments I've been using it in the previous company, and for me myself at home, I usually just have 1 group, so it doesn't really matter. But if you have some more complex requirements, like who should be able to access something, you can also try to model it that way. Okay, so quick demo. So I mentioned the configuration file. It's basically a YAML file where you have these so-called creation rules. These rules are used when creating a new file to determine who has access to it. And in this case, there's like one entry here, this rule, which has PGP, and it lists like 2 fingerprints of PGP keys. And these are basically then the public, or the fingerprints of the public keys for identities which have access to all files, because there's no identifier for which files these are. There's just the keys. So everyone in this group has access to all the files which were encrypted with this rule. At some point I'll put also the files for this demo online, so you can look at it. The keys I use are the test keys, which are contained also in the repository. You can just import them and use them to decrypt everything, or also to encrypt something, but please don't use them for secrets, because the private key is public. So good. And now I want to create like a new file, for example, secrets YAML. It's a bit hard because I have to watch there, I cannot see what I'm typing. So if I do this, ZOPS automatically opens an editor, and by default fills it with some example content, which I usually just delete. So we can have we have a token, which is ABC123, which is secret. Then this is a comment, my favorite token, and maybe some more interesting stuff, a list, and then some dictionary in it. Now if I save this and look at the file, then you can basically see that most things are encrypted. You can see on the left that, for example, here you see token, the key, and stuff. They are in clear text, but the values are encrypted. And also the comment here is completely encrypted. You cannot read it. And at the bottom, basically you have the content of the file, and then there comes a special SOPS key, and that contains information on which SOPS needs to decrypt this file. Like it also includes the identities, where it has a method authentication code to do some integrity checking. And now I have to scroll down. There you can also see for both the PGP key identities, the fingerprint is included here. It basically, what SOPS does is it encrypts the content of the file with a randomly generated key, and that key is encrypted with the private keys associated to the identities and put into this block. And so everyone who has access to this identity, to the associated private key, can decrypt this thing, and so they have the key for this file, and then they can decrypt it. Good. And now if I use SOPS to decrypt it, I can just see the content again. And also what I can do is I can edit it again. Actually it gets cut off, right? Yeah, if I edit it again, then SOPS opens editor. SOPS opens an editor. Now I lost the mouse. Which contains the decrypted content. I can modify it. For example, I can change or remove the comment. This, and if I save it, then the file will be updated. The comment will be removed. There was an update timestamp in there that will be updated as well. And there's also the message authentication code for integrity checking that will also be updated. But the other values will not be changed. So if you check that into a Git repository, you can see in the log that the other keys didn't change, but this comment went away. And some of the metadata changed. Okay, that's a very quick intro into SOPs. Maybe one more thing I want to show you is combining it with Ansible, namely the SOPs YAML file, the configuration. You have to include some fingerprints in there. And one thing I did pretty early on was usually what I do to manage these fingerprints is collect the public keys in a file, or in a directory, and then have a script, an Ansible playbook, which takes these files, extracts the fingerprint out of them, and puts them into the config file. So basically I have this playbook, which I've made it an executable by putting Cfgmng in there for running it with Ansible. And what it basically does, it looks for, at the bottom I have some variables where I mention the identities, or the PGP keys in that case, I want to have included. And then I'm using a lookup plugin to read the fingerprint out of these files and just put it in there. And then I template it. And if I run this thing, the output looks like this. So I put in a big comment that it's automatically generated, so nobody forgets about it when looking at it. And now the three public keys, which were there in this directory, are now translated into fingerprints and inserted automatically. Which makes life a lot easier if you can just manage files in the directory with meaningful names, and you can throw someone out, add a new person, and then just run the script and you get the updated config file. Good, back to the talk. What's Ansible? As promised, I think that you basically know about it. It's orchestration software. It runs through tasks that update state in some way. That's basically everything we need to know for this talk. Also, it contains credentials that should be kept secret. First, to access some services which you need to change, but also to, if you configure some services, you need to put secrets into these configurations files for the services so they know how to access other services you're using. So you have secrets all the time, all over the place, and you somehow need to make sure that these secrets are kept secret. Otherwise, they're not really secrets anymore. Good. Short intermission. I brought you a cat picture in case you're falling asleep, so at least you have something nice to look at. I didn't generate any AI pictures. I decided to take some cat pictures instead. That cat is, by the way, called Tom. He isn't alive anymore, unfortunately, but he had a happy life. He was able to go to the outside. There he was sitting on a meadow in front of our house and enjoying himself. Good. Now, secrets in Ansible. So the first thing you might do is, if you have secrets in Ansible, you might just put them into the playbook. Like here, you can see there's this token required. It's a short playbook which sets an DNS entry. Changing the DNS needs some token usually, so some authentication. I just put it in there, which is a bad idea. Don't do that. I don't think I have to tell you that, because if I have to tell you that, then, well, good. So how can we do this better? The first try is put it into a separate file. Then at least you don't have the secrets in the playbook, but somewhere else. But then managing these files is also tricky. I mean, you don't want to put it into Git, because, well, then everyone can see it who can look at the Git repository. If you don't put it into Git, you have to manage it outside the Git repository, which is also not so much fun, so also not a good solution. In Ansible, you can use Ansible Vault. In case you've never seen it, you can use it to encrypt whole files, but based on it, it asks you for a password twice to make sure you don't make it wrong. I took for this file here the password ASDF, which is don't do that, just for talks. This works, but it's kind of annoying because now you have this big blob which you cannot read anymore. That's not fun. What you can also do is use Ansible Vault to encrypt individual strings, for example the token itself. Then you can paste that thing into your variables file, so you have the token with the encrypted version of it. This looks pretty similar to what SOPS does, except that here you have to kind of do it manually because you have to encrypt every string manually, paste it in. Also, if you want to re-encrypt them or like change the password, then you have to manually do that for every single string and every single file, which you can write a script for that, but yeah. Good. So, well, I already mentioned that. Basically, to decrypt, you need passwords. You can either, there's a switch which tells Ansible, like ask vault password, that you entered on the keyboard, or you can use a password file that it reads it from disk. The password file is executed as the right name. It will be run by Ansible and like whatever to provide the password to Ansible. Like for example, it can query some password service like HashiCorp or B.1.017 or anything else. Whatever you want, basically. You can also use different passwords for different files by using different vault IDs. But then every time you run Ansible playbook, you have to tell it, okay, for vault ID 1, here's my password file, and so on. It's kind of annoying, but it works. That's also what I said. And from a security point of view, if you look at how it's implemented, it uses some password hashing algorithm, DVK-DF2, with 10,000 iterations, which isn't that great, but it's also not that bad. Basically, if you use a very strong password, like randomly generated long enough, then it's totally fine. If you use something simple, it's not a good idea for multiple reasons. So if you use it, use some long randomly generated password keys. Problems with this. One I mentioned already is changing passwords or re-encrypting. It's not so easy with the included tooling because there's no tool which like replaces all the encrypted or re-encrypts everything in a file. You have to do it manually. And password handling is the next problem because somehow you have this password. Like you can give it on paper to everyone in the team so they memorize it and destroy the paper. You can use some other mechanism to share the password, but it's still you need to share it somehow. There's nothing included which makes it easier for you. If you're using AWX, I guess then this one has some mechanisms to store that password in probably a better way. I didn't use it, so I cannot really say how it works. But if you're not using AWX, you have to somehow manage it. Okay, that's Ansible Vault, like roughly how it works. There, of course, it's possible to use other secret providers, like you can use HashiCorp Vault, you can use Bitwarden, and so on. For that, usually there are lookup plugins. I listed up all the ones I know about, which are mostly the ones in Community General. And then there's, of course, HashiVault lookup in the Community HashiVault collection. They are basically lookup plugins, so you can just use lookup with the plugin names and whatever configuration or the name of the secret you have, and it will just give you the result back, and you can use it, which is usually pretty nice. Actually, for Ansible Vault itself, there's also a lookup plugin, namely Ansible built-in unvault, and there's also Ansible built-in unvault filter. Just want to mention that because I actually didn't know about the lookup until I accidentally saw it recently. Using lookups has some disadvantages. First, there's no easy way to query an ungrouped set of secrets. For example, all the secrets you need for a playbook, so basically you need to query every secret individually, or if you use a good naming scheme, which fits for your playbook, you can use some bulk query to query all of them, but you have to do it kind of manually, and there's nothing which helps you easy. It's not like an Ansible Vault where you can encrypt a whole file, or put several strings or encrypted strings into one file and decrypt everything at once. Also, there are some pitfalls, namely a lazy evaluation mostly. If you use a vars thing to put the lookup call into a variable, and then every time you use that variable, Ansible will only evaluate it at that point. And so every time you evaluate it, it will do one query, which can be pretty slow. Especially if you have many hosts, it will evaluate it for every host individually. So that's not usually good. So the best thing is usually to use setFact and also put run once next to it to avoid it to querying it too often. Now that's something you have to think about, that you have to do manually. It's not so, it can be annoying. Generally, it would be nice, especially for secret providers, to have some replacement for the vars file directive, because in Ansible, if you use Ansible Vault, you can just use vars files, put in completely encrypted files or files which have encrypted strings, and it will just work. You can also use or put them into host vars or group vars, it will just work. You can also use the include vars action to dynamically load variable files. It will also just work if there are encrypted variables in there. For other secret providers, there's no real analog for these things. Another cat. It's intermediate. Okay, so now using SOPs in Ansible. You cannot really do everything as well as Ansible Vault does, because, well, Ansible Vault is a part of Ansible Core, and it can cheat at various places and do things that plugins cannot do. But we invested quite some work to get it to do some things very closely to how Ansible Vault works, but without having to use Ansible Vault, but with using SOPs. The nice thing is, well, SOPs is file-based, so you can have files also checked into the repository, which contain a lot of secrets, so you can use a lot of secrets at once without having to query for everyone individually. There's some tooling for re-encryption, rekeying, or modifying identities. It uses identities because it's SOPs, so there are some advantages over Ansible Vault in that sense. And also about other secret providers, because they usually don't work file-based and they don't have these, for some it's possible to create similar collections which offer similar support, but not for all of them. For SOPs, there's a collection Community SOPs. It has a vars plugin. Actually, if you look at vars plugins in Ansible, the community package, they are in all of the roughly 100 collections. There are exactly 2 vars plugins. There's the one coming from Ansible Core for host vars and group vars, and there's the SOPs one. So this is something almost nobody is using, but which is pretty nice because it provides you encrypted host vars and group vars using SOPs. And you can just put in encrypted files in there. If you use the right naming scheme, it will just decrypt them for you and you can just use them. There's also, of course, a lookup to decrypt secrets or whole files. There's a filter if you have the file loaded into memory to decrypt it. there's an action to load encrypted variable files, which unfortunately cannot load it as variables, but has to load it as facts. That's a restriction of Ansible core. The only plugin which is allowed to directly load variables is the load vars action. That's actually hard-coded in there. Basically, if it's that action, it will interpret the result as variables, otherwise it will always be facts. Which is something I cannot really do anything about. Then there's also a module to encrypt data, so you can update things when needed. There's a role which helps you to install SOPs, and a playbook which basically just calls that role. So you can, like if you're creating an execution environment, you can use that playbook to just install SOPs into that execution environment without having to do something more complex. I want to do a small sum up of all the things I've already said. I'm comparing Ansible Vault versus SOPs versus some client-server solution like HashiVault Corp or Bitwarden or something similar. Ansible Vault just works. You can just use encrypted things everywhere. For SOPs, you have not everything works, but with the collection it works pretty well. You have to do some replacements in some cases, but not everything just works. For client-server solutions, you usually have to stick to lookup plugins with all potential problems or things that work. Ansible Vault uses passwords, SOPs uses identities. Client-server solutions usually have proper user management where you can just add users which have access, or remove them, or whatever you want. Which is usually more flexible, but identities I think are a good compromise between having to share one password with having like full-blown user management. And then there's a big third topic, namely being able to work offline. Ansible Vault completely works offline as long as you have the password. If you have some a password script which needs some online service to run, obviously it doesn't work if you don't have a backup copy of the password, but otherwise it just works offline. For SOPs, offline is possible. I mean, if you have the private keys you need, like for example PGP keys, if you have them on your local machine, it just works. If you need to connect, or if you need some HashiVault instance or some cloud servers or KMSs to access them, you need some internet connection for that. And for the client server solutions, usually, well, if you want to work offline, you need some cache or proxy, otherwise you need a live connection. This can be really useful, for example, if you manage your whole infrastructure, including your secret provider, and if everything goes down, you have to do disaster recovery, you have to bring up your secrets provider, and you can't because all the secrets are in the secrets provider, and you cannot access them, you're kind of screwed. So it's nice to have some backup solution. Okay, some more demos. This one is about using variables in Ansible encrypted with SOPs. So there's first the vars plugin, and then there's this load vars action, which loads vars files and decrypts them. And it cannot give you variables, as I mentioned before. Ansible doesn't allow it, but it can give you facts. And there are like two options for there's an option for the module where you can choose between whether it should interpolate variables if it finds them, or whether it shouldn't, because once you have a fact, it's like a fixed string, it will not be evaluated anymore. So basically on load time you have to evaluate or not evaluate. It's not like with variables which we lazily evaluate whenever you use them. Okay. So, maybe let me do fine. I prepared a small demo where I have, of course, SOPs configuration. I have a group vars directory where I have like an unencrypted file, all.yaml, and I have an encrypted file, all.sops.yaml. Then I have some host variable file with encrypted and unencrypted file for localhost. There's like a secret vars encrypted variable file. And there's a playbook, and of course a host file and an Ansible config. The Ansible config mainly tells where is it? The inventory to use as hosts. And then the important line, there's vars plugin enabled. It lists both host group vars. That's the default plugin included in Ansible Core, which loads group vars and host vars. And it also names community sops. That's the vars plugin included in the community sops collection, which also looks in host vars and group vars for files having sops or ending with sops.yaml or sops.yaml, and automatically decrypts them. Now if I look at the playbook, what it basically does is I want to load some encrypted vars files, which I cannot do directly, so I have to add tasks for that, which use the load vars action in community sops. I tell it which file to load and how to, or whether to evaluate or not evaluate expressions on load time. So when looking at the files, one is the secrets one. Oh, well, maybe I'll open them with sops. No, sorry. Ah, crap. It's kind of hard if you don't see anything. That was the secrets YAML file. Basically looks like this. It has an encrypted variable which I will load without interpolation. It uses some Ginger, but that one will basically end up as is in the loaded variable because I don't interpolate for this file. And the other file is I put in a variable called encrypted variable with interpolation because that one I will load with interpolation. So I have some Ginger expressions in there and they will be evaluated. And similarly in the groups vars and host vars files I also put in some variables. So what I can now do is run the playbook. Yeah, it's not really nice to read, huh?
You select it with your mouse, is it readable? More readable? Yeah, not much about it.
I'll try to copy and paste it into an editor. Okay, so what it does is it loads the encrypted variables with and without interpolation, and then just shows all the host variables. And of course, they are all the standard ones. And somewhere, and now here are the interesting ones. For example, there's an encrypted group variable, which comes from group vars, and an encrypted host variable from host vars, which are automatically decrypted. Then there's the encrypted variable with interpolation, without interpolation. The one with interpolation, if you remember correctly here, this one was interpolated, and also that the end here was interpolated, and they have been replaced, while this one without interpolation, you can see this not as a Ginger template is still there, and it won't go away because Ansible won't evaluate it. Loading it without evaluation can be useful if you have something like which looks like Ginger 2 in there, which you really don't want to be evaluated. Good. I think that's basically this demo. Let me switch. Get rid of this one. Yeah, another demo is about loading and updating a file. This is also something pretty common. For example, you want to create a TLS private key for use with TLS, and you want to store it encrypted in your repository. So if you want to use it, you have to decrypt it. And if you want to create or update it, you have to like decrypt it, then update it, and then store it encrypted again. And one way to do it with the collection is, I think I have 2 examples here. It's kind of really hard.
Maybe shrink your terminal by 1 row.
Yeah,
If you
the
go-
problem is I cannot see the mouse cursor.
Oh, the mouse
And
cursor, okay.
If I try to do it, it won't be fun. So,
Oh, but I can tell you the commands to do that.
wait, I'm in the wrong directory anyway.
Because this is Copenhagen.
Yeah, that will work as for the shell will take it.
So I have 2 playbooks here. I think the first one is, it's just for loading. So what I do is basically I call the community subs lookup, tell it which file it is, and basically print it in this case, which you shouldn't do as a secret, but here I can basically look at what's in there. And I can also just use the built-in file lookup to load it, and then pass it through the community subs decrypt filter, which will also decrypt it. And there it cannot guess some of the parameters like input and output type from the file name because it doesn't have a file name, so I have to provide it if it doesn't just work. Here I'm telling it the input type is JSON because if I encrypt the binary file with SOPs, it will just store it as a JSON file. And I have to tell it the output type is binary, otherwise I will get a JSON file with a data key and some base 64 encoded contents of the file, which isn't exactly what I want to look at. And here's another example. Basically, I'm loading the secret stops YAML file. Then I'm passing it to the Ansible built-in from YAML filter. And then I'm using that and taking the token value out of it. This is one way to get a specific value from an encrypted file. Not the most elegant one maybe, but it works. And then there's a second script, or the second playbook, which creates and updates the secret key. It's a bit more complex. There's, I'm using a module called Community Crypto OpenSSL Private Key Pipe, which the idea for pipe is that you can hand in the file. I mean, the usual OpenSSL private key file operates on a file on disk, but I don't want to write the thing unencrypted to disk. So what I can do is pass in the contents of the current contents of the key with a content variable, or I can also leave it away, then the module thinks it doesn't exist, and it basically gives back the private key as a return variable, as a return value. And here I'm using the community subs lookup to load this private key, the encrypted one, and I'm telling it empty or not exist equals true. So if the file isn't there, it won't report an error, but it will just return an empty string. And then I'm using the default filter to omit the whole parameter if it's empty. This true here is, if you've never seen it before, basically means if you don't put it there, it will just look for undefined, but with true it will also look for empty string, and false or 0 would also work. Basically puts it in there. I'm adding no lock to make sure that nothing like the private keys won't be put into any locks. I'm registering the result, and then I have a second task which basically looks like when this task changes, for example, because it initially generates a key, or it regenerates it because it doesn't fit the parameters of the module, then this task here is run, which uses the SOPs encrypt module to basically update this file with the text content, which is the private key. And then there's an always clause at the bottom, which is kind of, oh wait, this is a bit too far. What I do is, one thing is that now we have this private key temp value which I registered, which is valid from there on for the next tasks, which contains a private key, and that's a bit not so great. This is kind of a hack, because now I'm using setFact to define a fact of the same name, so that if I use this name again, I will get the fact which happens to be an empty string. I will not get the registered variable. It's not the most nice hack, but it works. So in this case, it would be nicer if Ansible is a bit more like a programming language where you have like a scope where the variable is defined, but unfortunately that's not the case, so we have to use some hacks here. Okay, and now I can also run these playbooks. The first one was called playbook load, I think. Therefore, well, this is really not so great to read, huh? Basically what it does, it reads the secret key, which just happens to be this is the secret key. It is not structured data. It loads it as a file and then decrypts it, same result. Or it loads this other YAML file, this encrypted one, passes it through the YAML filter, and then just extract the value token, which happens to be this is the secret token. And then the other script is, what's it called again, playbook? Update, sorry. And this one, sorry. What it does is it calls a module with a non-existing private key, so with no content. It's changed because it generates a key. Then the second module writes the key to disk. And then there's another task which actually reads the secret key and puts it on the screen so you can see something, which happened to be begin RSA private key, and then I cut it off after some characters. And if I run this playbook again, then you can see here this this create update step didn't do anything because the key is already there. The update step was skipped because it's already there, nothing changed, and the key is still there. So this kind of, depending on whether the key is already there and fits the parameters, it won't do anything, otherwise it will update it. Good. Well, then a very quick demo about execution environments. Basically what you do, as in all execution environments, you tell it to use a ZOPS collection. And then you have to make sure that ZOPS is installed, because it isn't available as an OS package in most systems. There's this convenience playbook, community ZOPS install localhost, which you can run. This one will make sure that ZOPS is installed in the container, or in the container image, and then you can use it later on. So basically the execution environment definition is basically what was on the screen, and this build script is just calling Ansible builder to build it. Let's see if it actually works. It's not really. Let me just move it over so I can. Yeah, it's complete. The build context can be found at, and then there's a path. And then I had prepared a small playbook, which I want to run in the EE with Ansible Navigator, which basically just loads an encrypted file and decrypts it. And now there's a little problem because I'm using a PGP key here, and what I want to do is I want to mount the GPG agent into the container. So I can basically decrypt with GPG agent without having to provide the container itself with a private key. The problem is, for that I have to mount a single file, or well, it's actually a pipe, into the container, but there's a bug, in my opinion, in Ansible runner, which doesn't do that. It will, if you pass it a file, it will just mount the whole directory this file contained into the container. which is not what I asked it for. I wrote a fix for that. This example only works with a fix. Without a fix, it doesn't work. It took me some time to debug that and figure out what the problem is. But yeah, if I basically what I'm running is Ansible Navigator. I'm telling it which image to use, build policy, and so on. This here basically queries the file of the extra GPG agent socket and mounts it as root GNU PG s.gpg agent in there as the socket, as read and writable, and then it runs a playbook. And now if I run this, which now let me see if I can, yep, here it is. Basically what it does, it shows the secrets, and basically showing the secrets means that it was able to decrypt them. So it worked, but only with this patch. Good, and now I'm also done. This was the last slide. So if you have any questions, oh crap. You cannot see this. If you have any questions, please ask or talk to me after the talk, because I'm pretty much out of time.
We've got time for a couple of questions.
Okay, in that case.
A small question about the keying. When you change your key or you want to change how to decrypt some secret, how it's handled and...
There's this, the question was how to re-encrypt the files or update, like throw keys out. There are two scripts or two tools and subs included. There's the update keys and the re-encrypt subcommand. The re-encrypt subcommand will just change the key for a file and re-encrypt the file with a new key. The update keys will basically compare it to the keys which are configured in the soft YAML file and make sure that these people have access. And what it also, if I remember correctly, what it also does is it also updates the per file key, because the thing is that if you, especially if you remove people, you want this session key to be updated so that the people you remove don't know this key anymore. And also if you add new ones, you want this key updated so that people you added don't have the key for older versions in the version control. So, yeah. Any other questions?
So just before everyone else goes, let's make sure we give Felix a round of applause.
Thank you.
Time for any question?
So can you have read-only identities for subs as well, or is it always you can write it in?
It's basically always read and write. And the question is whether you can write read-only identities. The thing is, in theory, you could implement that, but there's no way to make sure that it's actually the case, because if you are able to decrypt, you know the secret key, you can also change it. Which is, yeah.
The metadata that's in the subs file, does it prevent everything in parallel?
Unfortunately not. So the question was whether metadata prevents editing in parallel. Unfortunately not. You can get conflicts, and these are a bit of a pain point. Someone is working on a merge tool for Git, which can basically merge together different changes to resolve conflicts, but it's not fully implemented. I mean, the best strategy right now is to avoid merge conflicts, which is always the best strategy if it works, but it's of course not always realistic. But yeah, that's definitely a problem which is not perfectly solved yet. Any other questions? If not, then thank you very much. And this over to the next one.
Ja. Even naar de toilet, hè.
Quick stopper right now.
Yeah, sorry for
No, it's okay.
taking this. put the speaker, this thing here on mute, there's this switch at the top. Appropriate. I've seen these things before, just in case it didn't.
Yeah.
Ah, du bist das.
Ja,
Have you got a real port? Yeah, I've got a real port. So which one?
It's good to finally put a face to it.
This is the man I was talking about.
Ah, this is the one I'm talking about. William. Hello, Jeffrey. How are you? I'm Mark. I'm Bonnie. Yes. I knew you were here somewhere. I was like, I knew he was here somewhere. I saw it and I was like, I don't know who this is going to be. Thank you for all your help. The community is brilliant. It's getting bigger. Yeah, it's getting much bigger now. So there's some good calls.
And the good thing is, I actually don't run into many issues anymore because it's just working.
Well, thank you. You can say that in a minute, okay?
I will.
I try hard. There's a new one coming through. I'm going to show you a new one.
I'm thinking how many machines we have. I think we have.
Or be bad.
So yeah, it's a small environment. But it's something.
We got clients that got. We have one a little while ago. 21.
Ik denk het. Die voor mij is...
I don't know how they
Dan heb ik bij besloten dat ik de rest niet onder ga. The problem is they don't. That's the big issue. People don't. And I know when I go to client site, they don't do it.
Doe je niet beacon? Doe je niet de beacon ook? Oh, je hebt multiple setups.
Oh ja hoor, Marcus. Hiernaast ook nog.
Oh.
Marcus van alle markten thuis.
Nou ja, dat weet ik. Maar hij is voor mij altijd Mr. Beacon.
Oh ja, maar die talks vind ik allemaal niet boeiend. Dus
nee, dat ben ik met je eens.
Oh, ja.
Dat kan wel.
I think that's very impossible.
Heb ik meer dan een half uur in de room gezeten. Waar ging dit nou over?
Yeah, this it's like the Fosdem University. Everything was broken.
Yeah, well, I mean, do we get Frostum for free? Or
We get this for free, I think. I mean, you get Fosdem for free probably, but
Ja.
yeah.
En de beacon zat erbij.
did I bring the cable that didn't work?
No, the splitter didn't work. So I got that one, that works.
Nee, is een beetje gokken.
This looks better.
Ja, onderdeel van een kok is.
Making compliance bearable.
Are you doing a live on that? Do you want to just bring that up so we can see about the...
Yeah.
One more? Wow. Even I'm going to struggle with that.
I'm struggling to see that here.
Is it better than mine?
Dat met de want dan heb ik gewoon daar liggen. En dan heb ik de telefoon niet best.
Yeah, it's all bright. So that's just not very bright, is it?
Dus ik kan
Oh,
dan
right, well, it's pretty good.
Is it better to go
Yeah, but we can't. They're stuck.
Nee. Krijg je vanaf tegen nieuwe?
They're broken.
Dat werkt niet eens.
It's op je head.
Stel je bewust dat er staat allemaal klantdata op. Dit is mijn oude.
Ja, die hebben gewoon geslijpt en...
Oké. Maar eigenlijk in de kap dit is een heel nieuw.
Is that better? Does that work? I can't screen that.
Oh, you can't see it. You increase the set size and take 3 steps back.
I have that.
At the back, is that readable? No. At the back, is the text readable? Thank you.
Ja, maar dat is een probleem met touwtjes doen. Dit is helemaal vast daarboven.
Oh ja.
Zo lang geleden.
Dan ga ik denk ik
gezien aan de.
Did you get yourself a drink?
Who was no should just open this?
Yes.
She's stuck on it hard, yeah.
My name's Mark William. I really love security.
Click one. Click it. Yeah, can you hear me back? You good?
We'll get started in about 5 minutes.
Shall we get anything? Switching.
We'll start in 5 minutes.
Ja, want ik kan maar niet bij.
5 minutes.
Hello.
Hello.
Is it my fault that you are here now?
Why is it your fault you're here?
No, it's
Well, I told you go to Comfort Camp and do a presentation about it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Hey, it's a tradition. I don't know who. So is that the hub? Are you?
I don't know if it's turned off because you don't want to. No, it's turned off. Okay. Just making sure you turn off.
No, it's your bank close.
Oh, one close stuck. Oh, okay.
I thought we can now.
No, it's stuck. It's university.
Yeah. You tried that, Simon.
Everything's on a budget. Everything's on a budget.
University, everything's slightly broken. Are you just want to check that's charging for us?
Yeah, charge.
Cool.
Yeah.
You got a typo in your Belgian.
Sorry?
You got a typo in your Belgian.
I have.
E-bike, is that Yorkshire e-bike?
Oh,
I have typed
Yeah.
I couldn't say anyway because it's full of print.
Oh, yeah, not here. In Stevenson.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, so trying to see if we can take it top of the Where I think it's you get to a talk. She's just going to take a quick photograph. Just before hello everyone, just before you get really bored, I want to get a photograph to see how many are here now and how many are here afterwards, because it is compliant, so if you either fall asleep or walk out, so it's fine.
Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to this session, this introduction session around Uni. Just a question, how many of you know Uni already? A couple, okay. That's not bad.
Yeah, they kind of
Hopefully you will get a better idea now after this.
Nee, nou, Daniel.
Let's start from the basics.
Een rijtje naar achter,
What is
probleem
your
opgelost.
Yeah, it's a horrible seat to sit in.
Well,
Yeah.
Do you want to move
It's
seats?
actually
Well,
I don't want to move.
like the largest
I was like,
soft
finally,
planet.
sun, but it's
This
a
is
bit
what
of
we
a...
Yeah, now it's in
It's a great angle.
more deeper into the important thing is basically an scalable system management solution. It is able to
Hello,
manage
good afternoon. Can you hear me all right?
tens
Oh, good, excellent.
or even
Thank you very much for coming along. More people than I actually expected. Compliance is one of those things that
and manage all
you
kinds
love or
of
you don't.
Linux
I'm
workloads
one of those,
with their
I'm not too sure camps.
Uh,
Who here works
in a-
with Ansible already?
in a single
Just so I
place.
can get
It's,
brilliant.
um,
And how many of you work in
providing
industry that
hardware and
uses
software
compliance or
inventories
have to be
for all
compliant
your
to work?
systems. Is allowing
I'll
you
say
to
no
do
more.
configuration
So we're talking well over 50%. So I'm going to try and go through and try and show you what we've been doing and how we're doing and some of the new features I've literally showed over the last couple of days. So you probably recognise a few of these. That might be some of you in the middle there at the end of the demonstration. But yeah, you can see there's obviously DORA is coming through for everyone in Europe right now. It can be applied with DORA as well, so there's a lot of things you can start taking into account. What I'm going to try and do today is to go through a project called Ansible Lockdown, and I'll try and show you a bit more about it. First of all, I'm Mark Bolwell. I am one of the principal architects on the Ansible Lockdown project. I've been an admin and an automation expert. Some people say I'm lazy because I just want to automate everything, but I've been working on those things for like 20-25 years now. I work alongside Mindpoint Group, who is a cybersecurity specialist over in America. And they sponsor and support the Ansible Lockdown project. I've been writing Ansible since probably a year after it came out, 2014, something like that. I've been at Ansible Fest, I've done meetups and bits and pieces as well. So I've got a little bit of experience, but as I find talk to everyone here, I can always learn more as well. So there's always another way of doing things. Okay, so let's just go through a little bit of why we've got to do this compliance. Who's written their own compliance? Anyone tried to write their own compliance? Yeah? Anyone really, really hate it?
Which is one of our
Is that the next screen you've seen? Because it works on server 1, it doesn't work on server 2. Yeah.
Let's talk about the origins.
And then, because the boss thinks it's a great idea, you're going to get it done next week, because his automation is really fast. And we know for a fact that it doesn't happen overnight unless you've got a perfect environment.
And it was
and
open source
the biggest thing to forget is that compliance is always changing. There's always a new standard coming out. You have to keep on top of it. If you don't keep on top of it, then you're going to be behind it, and it's even harder. One of the biggest things that people don't take into account when you build a new server, or those of us on the front line that are trying to fix things and write things understand a lot more than others. But when you get a server, you don't just install the operating system. You've got a life cycle of server. A lot of that is about maintaining that server. Whether it be patches, is it still compliant after patches? Is it changing anything? So you're patching, you're testing, you're recycling, you're patching, compliance. All these things go through the whole life cycle. So you have constant work for you to do.
Contributions that we were making.
I am going to rattle through this a little bit fast. I'm going to try and do a demo for you. Now, what we're trying to do is making compliance bearable, and we have a product called Ansible Lockdown. I'm going to tell you a bit about it. It's open source, so completely the same way. And we've got a few people here from the community that work on the survey to me. I know I have some really good pulls, so I can tell you now that there's some PRs from people in this room right now that have really helped us grow. We're a community of 700 people right now on Discord, and it's growing exponentially quite a lot every day. It is written for people to pick up and use. So we try to write it not to be specific to my environment, or your environment, or your environment. We try and make it so you can use it in most environments out of the box, just with a few little tweaks. And that's one of the nice things about Ansible and how you use configuration management, is the ability to turn things on and off. One of the big things that you come across, for those that haven't really played with it, one of the main ones called CIS is to remove the web server that's installed in the system. Well, if it's a web server and delivering your website, you probably don't want to remove your web server. So having the ability to turn those things on and off is really, really key. And it's great if you've got your own environment, because you just said to know all the time, but when you're trying to write for a community, and you're trying to write for everyone to use, it's a much bigger thought process. You're trying to make it so you can hit 90% of people if you can,
out of the box.
You can manage,
It's a
as
really difficult thing
mentioned,
to do.
on-prem, but you can
And that
also
doesn't
manage
happen
cloud,
without
cloud
people helping us
cloud
like you.
systems.
And writing in
We
such a
have
way
life
that you
cycle-
can
life
change it
cycle
very, very
management,
fast.
which is
So,
basically a way
I'm going
that
to say
you
now,
define
I'm using
different
roles all wrong.
stages,
That's what
like
Tim Apple's going to be doing the
development,
chat on right now.
production.
It's still in
Then you
roles.
can
And the
set
reason
up
being, if
filters,
anyone's seen the
that are
website,
able
we
to
have about
find
100 repos we manage right now.
just
Across different operating systems, different versions, different
extract
releases.
the packages that
So
you
trying to
really
work
like
out whether people want to go
those
Red Hat,
environments, and then
Debian,
once you are
SUSE, wherever they want to go, if they want CIS or
and
stick,
you
how do we
validate that
write the
everything
collection?
working as you
So we've
expected, you
just
can
got to
promote
try and get some feedback now
those
from the
channels
community
to
coming
the
up
next
and how do I
stage, so
go forward.
eventually you end up having
As part of lockdown
content
and
that you
config
have in your
management,
production
we
server
actually use a product
have been
called
already
GOS.
tested and
Now,
going over
GOS
this,
was originally part of
all this
Molecule a little
work.
while ago, doing some testing,
We
and
are
who's used
able
GOS before?
to execute
One,
recurring
two.
actions.
Okay, so
State
GOS
or
is
high
very,
state.
very
These
fast.
are concepts more on the
It runs on the
server.
host,
The idea
it's
is that
phenomenally
you
quick.
can program
And those of you that get
it,
frustrated with
plan the
compliance
actions
and
and
information will
and
realise
set that
try to get an
actions
answer back
are
on what's
going
failed
to
really
be
quickly.
recurrent
Instead of
and
pressing
all these kind of things.
the big names, I'm
Really
trying not to
useful
name
when
them,
you
but
are
there's a lot of good
defining maintenance
scammers
windows
out
and
there.
need that your
They can
actions are
take 20,
actually
25, 30
performed on
minutes to
those
get a response.
particular,
Here, on some boxes, even today,
time
you'll see
frames.
it's sub 2 minutes.
Compliance.
And
We
it's not
do
just
CVE
testing
audits,
configuration
SCAP,
incorrect.
and
The GOS
subscription
version I've
matching,
written
so you
tries
will
to
see
keep it
later
so
on
you can see what the
on
run
the demo.
configuration is.
The idea is
So
that it's
in a
really
lot of
easy,
scans
but
you'll
you
find
need
you'll
that.
pass the configuration, but the run
Let's say
configuration
you
is
have
completely
this
different.
new CVE and
So it's
you
one of those
have
things
a
we're
big
trying to bear in mind.
infrastructure, you don't really know exactly
We're heavily using
what's
Ansible
going on
directly.
your
We've now
system, and it's
over
really
half a
easy
million
when you
downloads across the repos.
You just put the
And
reference there.
we are very,
and
very
it will
heavy
tell
on
you
GitHub as
which
well.
of the systems are still affected by that.
It is obviously all on Ansible. We use Ansible across the board, so Ansible drives the whole configuration. And when I say the whole configuration, Ansible drives GOS, and the configuration GOS then uses the audits. So if you've turned off don't uninstall the web server, it will not run the web server check, because otherwise you're going to get a failure because it's still installed. You only want to check what
container
you're looking
images
for.
with your unit, and this feature is also able to inspect.
We do
the
use best
images.
practices,
You have
so
an
we are
image
currently not
with
using
data
Molecule, but we use
package,
Lint very, very
it's
heavily.
going to tell you, and
Very
you can
heavily.
see
We're using a
the
product called
images.
pre-commit, so the plugin that everyone
issue is
uses
configured.
pre-commit before you commit, and your GitHub
Monitoring.
repo
So
can
we
look at it as
provide
well.
also
We've got
using
all
a
those
full
things
stack.
inside as well to try and
So
make
you
it
will
as
have
consistent as
metrics
possible.
from your running unit server, but also
Okay.
with metrics from
Two
your
major
managed
groups
system.
here. One CIS, which
You
is
have
mainly
information about the
European, so
internal
most of you have heard of CIS. Anyone heard of STIG?
Metrics
Any, apart from okay, so STIG is based on DISA, part of the DoD, and it's very heavily sensitive towards the federal government in America. So they are very similar to CIS, but they have another layer. Now, the DoD and DISA STIGs are actually written with the partners, so in this case Red Hat helped them to write the hardening. The CIS is community-based, so the community helps to write the feedback and provide the next best practices. So they are very, very similar, and if there isn't one filler, you can alternate in the federal government. But CIS is the majority of what we're seeing downloaded, even in America right now. So it's very, very busy.
Which means that
current supported OSs is just a couple.
On the unit is basically calling Sol under the hood, and you can also operate Sol.
And you'll see SUSE is not on there, it's literally written right now, as well as an up-and-coming operating system which is not quite GA yet, but I'm just leaving that there.
All the information that is injected.
We also don't
by
support
unit
operating
into the
systems.
Sol.
We also have some Cisco network components we can run. We have Apache, Nginx currently works as well, Kubernetes, and I'm halfway through doing the AAP platform on STIG as well. So it's not, because it's Ansible when it's not tied to one specific platform, we can run it on multiple things.
If you have been doing this
So how does it all work?
management thing,
Now, like I said, Ansible is the source and control. So everything inside our Ansible role is the source of how DOS runs, how you configure it, how you set it up. Same settings you use Ansible in your variables, the same settings that GOS runs.
we have also auto installation.
First of all, we try and get you
can
a
run
pre-change
on the
state,
SUSE side,
so you can see what state your box is in
AutoYas.
before you did anything.
AutoYas is basically
This is then stored locally on your machine, so you have a
AutoYas
copy
is
on the machine,
basically
what state it was before you made changes.
definition of
Now,
the
we
state
all
of
know
the
that we want to have
machine.
downtime beforehand and really to make sure it's working
allow
properly
you
before we do
to
it.
run and attend an
I know it
installation.
doesn't happen, I have clients that don't do it either.
And yeah, do just
We then try and remediate
run the
according to your
installation and
settings,
get the
and
system
then we'll
just
do a
based
push
in your
remediation so you can see it before and after state. We also try and show you
You
what's
can
happened,
connect
what's
also with
changed
other
using
environments like
Ansible a lot,
VMware,
And then if any controls need to go back and manually look at, we've then got a list at the bottom that will tell you one.
And
Okay.
Azure, I think we have also integrated.
Another answer. Okay. So, here is the demo environment, and I am hoping they're with me today. We'll go for a live demo. I haven't put this one yet. Two systems. I don't know if anyone's noticed there, but this is now ARM. Now, officially, Special Stick do not support ARM. So what we try to do is to help the community. I'm actually chatting to the gentleman helping people here last week with Quebec. He's written it so
some of your system
are running Ansible works, you go your system, you discover what system calls you can make it into the kernel, and then uses Ginger to make sure we do execution with the rest of actions that you can do. So it's actually a dynamic way of working. I'll show a bit of code in a second.
Architecture. So, well, basically, as mentioned, we have a central Udemy server.
Very impressed. And this again is the power of, as John's been saying, is and everyone else
not direct access with the
to help you grow and learn yourself as well.
Those proxies are also catching.
So if you see the very first line here,
packages, etc.
we have the line 7 is post-audit
your network is not the best one.
So it's just running on the screen.
This topology. You can connect clients directly, or you can use proxies and connect clients to the proxies. This scales quite well. So with a single Udemy server, you can manage a few thousands of servers. If you need more, then you can use the hub. The hub is basically another Udemy server that you put on top of those, and it's basically aggregating all the data from the peripheral Udemy servers, and you will have this overall view from the top. So with this architecture, we are able to scale this quite a lot. Looking a bit under the hood, this is what we see. So as I told you, the server is a container. It basically has.
Sorry, we've got part of the screen that's not doing on there.
We have to check here for running the Java application, the web user. We have the Sol Master, which is the one that takes care of the communication with the proxy. Yeah, and as I mentioned here, the clients are usually running a Sol minion, which connects to the Sol Master, and it's the one that is receiving the actions that are published by the Sol
very
Master.
top line,
And it's just performing the execution. I put an asterisk there because we are now using what we call Sol bundle. So instead of the normal Sol minion package or process, this is a special package that contains not only Sol, but it contains also the
I could, but I can't see my own screen. I get one word
that we need to operate Sol and Unix.
I can try, hang on.
So we don't need to worry about
the
Python version that is
running
on that particular system that we want to manage, because we provide everything to be able to run the actions themselves. This is the default configuration, let's say, but sometimes you don't have access from your clients, even using a proxy, to your server. And the way the Sol minion works is that the Sol minion takes the Sol Master. But in those cases, we can also manage this by using Sol SSH, in this case, what is going to happen is that every time we need to perform action,
run the Ansible,
there is going to be an SSH connection that is triggered from the Susmania server to that particular client. In case that is behind proxies, is going to do all the jumps until
it's quite complex to start to go through it. There's quite a lot of G2 in there. It has extended that. The fact that you've now got two different operating systems that are officially supported, we're trying to assist people with. And the community effect back again. I can't do I'm just I hope it is. So
obviously
that's what I'm doing.
You need to create a single SSH connection for each one of the system that you want to reach. While in the case of the Sol minions, all Sol minions in the client are subscribed to a public socket. So you don't use socket, and then the Sol Master just need to publish even once that they are then
okay, so I'm going to run the playbook really quickly in the background, and then I'll show you what's going on with the
create let's say a separated connection for each one of the clients that we are targeting for that specific action.
Oh, really handy.
So, which systems are we supporting? So this is the current picture that we have.
That's
You see some of the
so that's just going to go on. They're running locally on UTM
so
and
we are
bottom
not
here.
covering them anymore.
So they are
This
running
is
on
the
my
current
laptop.
list of active
What we'll do is I'll bring this
systems
up
that
straight.
we are managing. So as you see, we are not really tied to a particular vendor or distribution, but we try to cover all of them. The idea is that
Okay,
most of
so
the
you see the
environments
inventory
are
here.
actually
Using it on and off, as I was saying earlier on, the ability to turn
Let's
things
just
on and
try
off
to
as the way you
focus
want
on
them,
being able to
and the
manage
ability to
all
build the way you want
Linux
them,
distributions
means
that
that
are
I've
there.
got two systems that are
As you
set
can
up very
see as
differently.
well, most of
So
the,
one
a
here,
lot of the,
I'm actually using all the component locally, so it's copied from
systems that are
what
being
could be a local
supported
drive
here are coming
on
from the
O1,
Unity
and I
community,
see it's
so
actually
not only
downloaded
from
from
the
Git.
development that is done
So
by
we're trying to
users
make
in
it
this
as
case,
uniform, you
but
can be usable
also
as
from
possible.
Unity
The
community,
whole reason why we
also
chose
during
this
the
GOS
hack
route
weeks, which is
is because it's
an
great
activity
for
that's
air-gapped
done
environments.
as
Anyone
we
work
say
air-gapped
every year,
environments?
that allows
So
people
trying to
to
get
hack
anything
and
certified,
to
signed off to
stuff
get inside an
from
air-gapped
time to
environment
time
is really
out of
hard.
the
And
normal
a single
work
Go
that they do
binary,
usually.
fully open source, which I can
So if
see,
you want to
you
start
only have
playing
to
with
sign off
Uni,
from one
first
binary
thing
and
you
get
need
that
to do
approved.
is, of
You
course,
don't
you need
have
to install it.
any other language, which I can't say
There's a
about,
web page
bringing
to
hundreds
do
of
that.
modules in, which then have to be checked
Just
and
a small
validated.
guide, but
So
it's really easy. You
the
just
reason
need
we
to
chose GOS is that
install OpenSUSE
we work
and
heavily with the
Micro
federal government over
5.5.
Micro.
If
Okay,
you don't know
so
what
you
this
see here, obviously
distribution
plus a few on
is,
variable
this
strip,
micro
and I've
thing
left the
Linux,
passwords on
this
screen
is
because it's
actually a
not exactly
transactional
obvious, it's
system
just a paper
for
box,
those
so just
that
sign up,
are not
just to
aware
play around
of what
with
this
things.
is about.
That's not best practice, please don't do
It's
it.
basically OpenSUSE.
You can set up audit, you can turn audit off, you can turn it on, you can do all sorts of things with it.
The root
You've got
file
also other
system is
variables you can
read-only,
set to
so
your own
anytime
environments.
that you wanted
And as with
to
Ansible,
change
it's
on your
really
system,
easy
you need
with
to create
anything to variabilize and use
a
variable
separate
inheritance.
snapshot on the
So
file
if you know how the
system
inheritance
where
works, everyone know that
the
default's
new
the lowest
packages and
level,
your
you can
changes
easily
are applied,
override them very, very
and in
quickly.
order to activate that
Everything we
transaction, you need
set,
to reboot the system.
apart from those that
Other
very
than
rarely
that,
change, it's going
it's
to be
really
a
easy.
default file.
You just need to
And there
install
should be
Unity
some sort of
tool,
documentation
you need
around
to
that.
add the repository,
The other ones we
Unity
don't tend to use
and
very
with
often
that
that
you
go in the
can
host
use
files area.
the mgradm
So just
entry
fast.
point just to
But everything else you can override
installation
quite easily
of
with
the
that
containers.
inheritance.
In this case, we are using Podman.
So on the demo already,
And
I'll go back to
we
that
will see
screen
in the
there.
future.
Right.
It
Any
might be
questions so
that we
far?
are able also
You're
to
very
run
quiet.
this on
Go on.
Kubernetes. We will see.
You had a list
Once
of
you have your
operating
container
systems
running,
Yeah.
the next thing you need to do is to enable the channels of your different distributions, or the channels with the software that you want to start using on those clients that you want to manage. And after that, you can start with registration and start playing with it. Quickly, 3 ways of registering systems.
So I
using
would
the
say you can
UI
test
or the
it.
API.
It's also going to go into the
Easily,
modules. So
you
we
go there,
try
put
very,
the
very
host
hard
name,
not
click,
to
click,
use
and
the
that's
shell
it.
command modules. We
You
try
can
to
use
use
a
modules
generated
that built in
bootstrap
as much
script
as
that is
possible.
also provided by
We
your
do
Unity
come
in
up with
case that you
these
just want
modules because
to
obviously
trigger the
they're there for a
registration
reason.
by executing
So there is some dependencies in the collection
and
of
that's
what we
it.
do.
Or you
But
can
we
also
do,
manual registration
whilst
by just
officially, if you look at the
editing
CIS,
the
it will say
configuration,
CIS will be Red Hat 9 or whatever it
pointing
would
the
be.
sole master,
We do
which is in
test it
this
on
case the
Locky
Unity server. And
Oracle.
once you accept the
So we
sole
know
keys
they're
on
there.
the
When you've got the system D problem
sole
is how
master
the
on the Unity
Python
server,
module from
then you
Ansible
will see
actually
what the
handles that.
registration
Is it
is
trying to run a
triggered.
service, but
And that's it, and you get the system.
it should find it if services install the old init processes. It should be fine, but I
when you are
wouldn't say.
triggering the registration of a system, you can have this. You
But
can
yeah, this should work. We've got people
provide
using
an
different places.
activation
I did have someone say,
activation key,
does
you
your Debian
create
10
the
work on
unit,
Debian 9
and
the
you
other day?
can
Not quite so sure that's going to
you
work,
can,
we'll see how we get on. There we go. Is that finished already?
define for that activation key
Wow, I didn't spell
that
that
you
nice
want
and fast. That was
certain
faster than I
states
expected.
to be applied. So for example, I might have
That
an
is good.
activation key for my
Problem
web
is you can't see
server
the screen still.
or for different things. So anytime that a system is registered with that activation key, as soon as the system is registered, it's going to start applying a set of configuration that you have been defined.
So here was the end
So
result of the controls running. You can see right at the very bottom we've got the normal Ansible summary, which is the number of things that are ran, the number of things that changed.
Groups and
Where possible, and I will always state where possible, I can post it can possibly make it.
define that this system
I
is
also
actually
feel that sometimes when I'm adding a file to a system,
and
I'm making a change to the
everything is
system
going
so
to be
that should be
triggered
changed rather than it's just a file that I'm going to use, but it's still
This
a
is a
change to
system
the
inventory. okay.
So I try
We
and
will see it
think about
later
how
in the
some
demo, but as you
happens.
see here, you have different clients. It's going
If
to
we
tell
go
you
back at the
if they are
student one,
good, if there are some critical upgrades or stuff that you need to do for each one of the You know, here we have OpenSUSE lib, we have also some fake channels.
It is
there,
running a
if
fair
it's
few
before
checks.
as well.
So on the Red Hat
And you
9,
see system type
you'll see the
solved,
number
but
of
there are some
visiting audits
special,
done.
for example, the first
At
one
the
you
bottom
see
here,
this
you'll
is
find different results. One, because one's run it one way, and one still one different way. So you've got one using auth select, one's not using auth select. There's conflict.
being able to manage those.
So the setup's slightly
As I
different.
mentioned as well,
You can see in
run
what, 28
that
seconds from
allows you to do
806
basically the
checks
same
in
that you are using with the
So if you're running locally,
but
you can hop on a box and run GOS
CLI
manually.
tool, or you
You
can
can
use
also
API.
run,
We are
there's an
providing
option to
XML
run
PC API
audit only
and also
through the
JSON
playbook,
for
and
HTTP.
again we use a whole
And as you
Ansible
can see, it's
config
really
to
easy
drive
to
the next level configuration management.
trigger
So
an
most of the
action.
configuration works.
For example,
And
the
then
next
you use
example,
all
we
that.
are just looking
Any
up
questions
for
on that so far?
a new CLM project, and yeah, you get the response, and that's it.
Now, no one's asked what GOS is. GOS is a YAML-driven product. The reason why we've chosen that because you're using YAML every day in Ansible, and you're using YAML every day in GOS. So you'll see similarities straight away. In the folder structure, if I can, sorry, it's so big, I'm trying to find anything
the
here.
hours meeting call in this case that you can join as well, just to see. You know, we always bring the new the progress of the project and all the stuff
In
there.
this direction,
And
which
there are
is, so
also
here's my
quite a
audit
nice
files.
discussion there.
So
from
these
time to
run,
time.
and you'll see a similar
you're
structure the way
welcome
we run
to join us there.
audits.
If you want to contribute the code, we have a wiki for setting up your developer environment, and then of course just go and create pull requests. And of course we also want people that help us with the translation. So if you have, yeah, if you want to participate on that, yeah, more than welcome.
Okay, I've lost track of where I'm going.
It's there.
Interesting and
context
useful
file?
list we
Yeah.
have here around.
You see in line 1, just underneath round 9. The bottom thing is just moved that way, so you can resize it down and you have your file.
That one there?
Of course,
A little up, one more bar up.
the source code which is in
See,
GitHub.
this angle you can't.
Up. There, yeah.
Here.
We're there.
2 pixels up, you were there. There, click it, scroll down.
Just go here.
Yeah,
There we go. Thank you.
Hey!
I've got one. Thank you very much. See, this is about the community and everyone getting involved. That's what I like to see. So you can see here, although the language is slightly different, it's all in YAML layout. So here again, I've set all my variables in my default class to Ansible. These are passing across to say whether the variables are 10 or off. So you're using exactly the same. Again, this one here, auto-refresh. If you don't want to have auto-refresh, it will skip your control. Only testing what you want. And again, because we're all using version control, when it comes back to documenting your processes that you've got exceptions for, because I know you all do that really well in compliance, you then have your version control that have that written down as well. So you're driving configuration management through version control, and you have full visibility to any auditor, compliance person who wants to sit down next to you and try and give you the 9th degree of what you're doing. So hoping that's a little bit simpler. You'll find as you go down the file, it uses modules, they're actually called tests in GOS. We also pass it a lot of extra metadata. So you'll find the accurate list can come in 2 formats. One is JSON, which is the default we set up in Ansible to run it in. And the second one is documents. And documents are a lot more human readable. Documentation, sorry. But the JSON format allows us to manipulate data and show it to you in different formats, which I might just give you a little hint in a second of how to do it. Any questions? Where we are?
This is so much better than Cfgmgmtcamp.
I know. The problem is that you're trying to read it, and if you've got a similar thing you're reading all the time, it makes life much easier. Even not generate at all. So these files I created is driven by Ansible. So we go back to.
Okay, I need to move this again.
Where am I going?
I'll
tell you what, this is driving me.
Good. So, once we log into Uni, this is what we have. We have an overview page. It's basically giving you some information about your system, the status, and last actions that were executed. Let's just go to our system so we can actually go inside. Well, here we have a couple of. I have a Linux 9, OpenSUSE, Linux, and Ubuntu. So you see that we're actually able to manage the different distributions. And as you see, it says, okay, we are good here, we are not that good here. This information, well, since I
I can try and turn it on right now.
packages from all those
That'll work. Oh, look at this. Hands-free. I've lost it now.
That's back.
Can we...
That fixes itself. Don't touch the cable.
Oh, it's the gas. The gas is on. Sorry.
For example, and here we have information, just a summary of what this system is. We can see the channels that this system is subscribed to. We see here that this is a salt minion, which is nice. Yeah, let's just have a quick look around things that we can do on this. So, well, first thing that we can do is just execute a command. Let's just
Oh, yeah, the bottom bar. The button
What is that doing there?
Oh,
wow.
Where to go now?
You can
Oh, left.
schedule that, or you can even
That's
incorporate
because I'm trying to use
the
a keyboard.
action chain, which is
Using the
we want to
front
execute this
hand, and I
action,
have
after
sausages
this
for
action, this
fingers.
other action, kind of an
It doesn't really
orchestration
help me.
thingy. So in any case, let's just run this. Let's go to events. Okay, no pending events, so it wasn't executed already. Yeah, it's green.
We go into the drop template, which is exactly how we're driving all the dots. Good. So here is your drop template.
Software.
And this is purely Ginger 2. So as we go through it, all of these variables are driven from Ansible itself. Everything's driven from the default bars. You'll see all the inheritance, how we use.
So this profile is always
And we're driving them through each
system
section.
is actually
So you turn sections on
having.
and off. They're all inherited
For
from
a
how you
package, of
run.
course, we have all the information
Turning
about
off.
the particular
I can compare that
package,
to tailoring files,
change log
those,
and
yeah.
everything.
Disabling rules.
Yes.
We
yeah.
can trigger upgrades, installation of new packages.
So you can turn, so when you turn them on and off, you can compare them to other scanners.
So we can
OpenSCAP, we use OpenSCAP.
So this is a way also for you to
Two of
manage
you,
the
three of you.
the
Maybe four.
That's a good thing.
There's
As
four.
as possible.
Yeah, who uses Nessus or Rapid7 or any of those in the bar? You find you also get false positives.
system.
I'm saying no more, there's a really good blog on that. But you can see where I'm coming from, hopefully, on how to class it. And the nice thing is Ansible, and I was a sysadmin for many years, and I really wanted to get into automation and configuration management really quickly, because I could just see the massive win for me as a team and a team leader eventually. And the nice thing was that all the clients I worked with at MSP were brownfield, so nothing was new. And to work with Ansible and have that ability to turn things on and off very quickly and tweak them was a really, really quick
In this
easy way
case,
of
there
doing
is a
it.
source summary of what the highest
So
state
literally, if I can
for this
work out how I'm going back to
system,
this
which is of course all
screen again,
internal
please,
state
Tom.
from Uni to work, and I assigned
You can
also
go, you can override using normal variable ways, so if you use extra vars or your at symbols or group vars or however you want to run it. But everything in general is
if you
set.
want to create recurring actions, like I want to execute the highest state every day at certain hour or whatever, we can
So you'll
prepare
find all
the
your,
schedule, and this is going to be triggered. And if you want to run not the highest
all your
state,
files,
which is
everything is
complete
booted.
set of
So we
templates,
try and run
you just
everything,
want to
because
execute
some
a
things you
particular
can set
state,
yourself, like your
then you can
users,
also
your
go
passwords.
here.
Again,
You
you're
have
not
the
a password
internal
inside
state
here,
plus
it's going
also
onto
the ones
GitHub.
that you have created manually. In
But
this
you'll
case, I
find you
create
can
one
set
for
up
the
which directions you want to go to, how
and
you want to
also
set them
for
up for
setting
your
up a
environment.
web server.
Anything we feel that you
Of
can
course,
turn
we
on
have
and
full
off,
history
you
of
might want
events
to.
and all
It's
the
about
other
making it
things.
as usable for many people as possible.
Good.
And that's the whole
let's
idea.
just do some
Now,
stuff.
there's a couple of people in here that I
first
know
thing
have done some really
to
good PRs and come back
let me
with
just
really
go
good work.
here. It says that I
I
have a
can't
critical
say enough,
upgrade
as I'm
here.
strong to say enough
So
on
you
the
see the
community
patches
aspect.
that are
When you've got a team of 3 or 4 running this,
problems that are
compared to
supposed to be
600-700 that
on my
just needs to give you
system,
that 5 seconds, 10
this
seconds,
one,
30
you have
seconds
the
of
patch
feedback
information,
sometimes,
and this one,
just to fix something that you may not have seen or you have done 5 years ago, it really helps to give you that little.
oh, everything is gone.
Any more questions on these? Yes?
How are the sections defined?
So in CIS there's 7 sections now. Those of you that are still in the old versions, there's 6, but the new version there's 7. They've just rewritten the whole thing, just to make life easy. So you'll find section 1's mainly file systems and mounts. 2 is services. Oh, you're going to try and put on the spot now, I can't remember the rest of them. But they're all broken down into different areas.
Confusing, and the numbers don't match with 7, 8, and 9.
No, and you'll also find that if you had 1.1.1 in Debian, it would be a different 1.1 in Red Hat. So for us to try and write that consistently so everyone can go, I just want to turn off 1.1.1 everywhere, it's great. But you've got 10 different operating systems, doesn't doesn't
and you
always work
see
that
there
way.
is a CV here, so you have all the information around CVs and
Upgrading from
everything.
version 1 to version 2 and then
That
rewriting
you
all.
can just
Yeah,
enter.
exactly. So yeah,
In
it's
this
fun.
case,
Any more
let's
questions?
just try to fix this
Output
one.
format of course, what is it? Is it something where I can easily get key
I'm
value
not
pairs?
sure what is
Okay,
going to
so
happen
we've
because
written it to come out
I
in JSON,
didn't fully
so you
see
can
the
override that,
opportunities,
so the
but
default
let's
value
give
is
it a
JSON.
try and let's see
It's all
what
documented
happens.
with
So
docs,
this is
so
going to apply this
Ansible
patch,
lockdowns
we
will
will apply
read
this
docs as
patch
well.
now.
But you can change the machine readable format with
Let's go to
documentation,
events,
and that's all
nothing
settable
here.
in variables and overwritten in
Okay,
variables if
it's
you want
running
to.
already. Let's see.
I will be cheeky, I'll show you the next slide.
So we completed. Here you see.
Right, this is, so you've just seen the first thing, so this ARM one's literally been pulled Friday and committed in, so ARM is now being officially supported as well, as we go to refresh and adding them.
The execution that we just
But
did.
the
And at
next
some
slide,
point
if I
you
can
would
find
see
one.
that, yeah, we installed this patch and you have the information. Okay, good.
They will be on
That
ARM
is how
eventually.
easy it is
Obviously,
to
we've got a whole
hack
cycle to
system.
go through and
Yeah,
change.
okay. So
There's a lot of
they'll be on ARM, right,
Let's
on
see
ARM.
We'll be doing
in
all on ARM
1 minute or
eventually.
two that this
But
is
the
number
number
is
of
actually
repos
going
changed.
to
So
decrease.
CIS comes out about every year, 18
What
months.
else?
For the community.
Yeah,
The
so
DAD
beside
is
of
every
this,
3
I
months,
wanted
every
to
single
execute
process.
for
So we do updates
the
now every 3 months.
particular state
But yeah, it's
that
quite
I
hard.
told you.
9 times
This
out of 10
one
is
web
just
server.
changing the number.
We
but
can
you
have a
still
look
need
here
to
how
change
this
it.
is looking.
Let's see if we can get this back up, Simon.
You can create different templates of your state. In this
Yep.
case, this is a salt, and this is just a web server, simply one that is
Okay,
installing.
so for those of you who just asked a question, and I haven't shown you this because you can see a big word that starts with B in it, but I'm not allowed to really show you.
And
Yeah,
let's
so the
just
top left corner will give you an
go back and
overview of your
execute
estate,
this thing.
and that is all
and
just
see
JSON.
if
So we're
this
using
works.
JSON to manipulate
I
it
can execute
and show you
this
in a format.
in isolation,
But you
or
can actually
since
drill down
I
and find
set this
information which one
state
failed, why it failed, which
to
host
be
it failed.
part of my high
But again,
state
all
like
this,
this, so I also
guess what it's driven by?
incorporate the MOTD into
So
this
everything we try and
system.
write is consistent across
That's
the
it.
board. We
You
try
can
and keep
also
as much as
order
possible.
which
This is
one you
just a
want to
really small subset of what we
go
have, but I
for
haven't really
first.
shown that, so
And
I'll
again,
take
if
it
I
off the
now go
screen.
to high state, I can
Okay.
see that my
There were two reasons
state
earlier on. I
is
mentioned
now
why we're using different
internal
products. So I'm going to go back to
states
GOS
that
really
configures
quickly.
the
Number
channels
one,
that we have
who
configured
doesn't
and
make
kind of
mistakes?
stuff, plus our custom state that we are running on.
That's pretty good. So you all admit that you make mistakes.
This high state
So
and see
who writes Ansible? Do humans
this
write
works
Ansible?
or
Do
not.
you think they make mistakes as
Okay.
well? So
Pending.
from our own point of view, it's nice to say that
see.
the Ansible I've asked it to do has done what I've asked it to do.
Hopefully.
It's left the state in which I want it to do.
So
But I want to double check what
high
I've
state
written,
was
what the Ansible people have written, and
and there
everyone
was
else has
also an
written is correct. So
automatic
I'm using
schedule
another
of
tool
how
to do
packets
that.
this refresh, since our
So that's the
state was
reason.
changing
That, the air gap environments
the
which you
packages
get,
that were installed.
trying to get something started
Which
across
one is
the air gap
automatically
environment and all
going
the
to
dependencies
keep the
is extremely hard in
to
some
trigger this action,
environments.
so we have the profile, the
So
support
using a
profile
single
always
binary,
up to date.
I
So
can't
according
talk
to
enough
this,
about it. And it's fast.
let's
You
just
saw that
double
less
check.
than 30
Yeah,
seconds
we
on those
install
boxes running
Apache
on
and all the stuff,
an ARM press
and
himself
then
here.
we set
So that's the reason for it, and
index
it's driven by
page,
Ansible.
and we enable.
It's simple, when you've got
So
consistency in what
let's
you're doing.
just
I can
see.
write in another language, it hasn't got
I
its own
think this
language,
was
it's just another different YAML format.
139? Yes.
Okay, any questions?
Then
Go ahead.
let's check the address of this
Yep.
Like, how do you
server.
integrate like the role into existing project? So like, do people like use everyone use some modules? Like, so the problem is like, how often when you update the role, like the lockdown?
And here we are. Yeah, good. So
Like, well, what's your strategy there?
So lockdowns are still roles. So the
that's
question is,
how
how do I
we
implement the roles
incorporate,
in the lockdown project? So there
custom
are still
state that
roles.
we
We
create
haven't got a question.
to the
So
different
you
systems
literally
that we
download a
have
role.
around.
And
One
how you
extra
include your
thing
roles
that I
will
told
be
you
how
about
you
was
set
the
up your
formulas
environment.
with
So
form. This is
many
also
people
very
actually do
nice
it start
because
time or
we
build
have
time
already a
depending on
collection
operators.
of formulas
So they
here.
run out
You can
as
also
part of
extend this
their
collection.
packer builds or
there
however
are,
they're building them.
you know,
So they
if you
run
want
out
to
from like
configure
that platform as well.
DHCP or
It depends
okay,
exactly.
for example, you
Again,
can click here,
everyone does things
you
differently.
save,
So
Would you consider like a good practice
and then
to actually
you are
keep
going
on,
to
like,
see that
updating the
now
role,
a new tab
like,
appears here,
kind of blindly,
rendering
or,
a
like,
small
would you
UI
do some testing for the
where
new roles
you can
where-
define actually
So
your
from our
preference
point of view, from the
in
Ansible
regard
lockdown,
of
they are
okay,
all released.
if we
We
set,
have
for
two
example,
branches we work on a lot. So we
DHCP,
have the main release, which we
in the
consider
same
production,
way,
and there's a lot more
it's going to
stable.
appear here.
The Vel will always has worked and has a latest and greatest fixes,
which
might knock out fixes that people aren't going to work the
UI
same,
that
because
allows you
until
to
you get the feedback
configure your
sometimes, you
DHCP
don't know how that's going
and
to
all
work.
this
But
information
again,
that
it's
you
down to the
set
feedback you
here
get and
and you
PRs
save
and
it,
issues and stuff being raised.
is going to
But
be part
in
now
general,
of
unless
your
I've written
hosting.
it or one of us guys in the
You
team
see,
has
we have more
written,
things now
do
here.
not do an upgrade,
Two that we saw
you should
before,
move from one to
the
the other.
DHCP
The only
formula and
problem
the
you're going to
locale
have is that
formula.
they move numbering
All
around.
these
And that's
different
completely out of our
things are
control. So
basically
where you might have said faults
rendering
in
what we call the high
1.1.14,
state that
that
then you execute
there's no
is
change to the
basically
completely
making the
different
system
control,
to
and you're now turning
be
off web
according to
services.
that declaration
So
that we
you
have
still
done.
need to have an understanding of what's
Good.
going on.
And
Same as
just
running
double
anything,
check
you
the
have to have an
code.
understanding of the operating system. I've had
just
quite a few instances
few
here
more things that
recently,
I
not
want to
here,
show
but on
you.
the forums, on the
The
chat
audit.
recently. I've downloaded it and it's broken my box.
Maybe it's because I'm touching this.
You've just downloaded something on the internet,
the
you
audit
really do
page,
need to
this
test
is what
to
I
make
told
sure
you about
you're in a good state. I think all of us have learned about it sometimes, but yes, we see that.
I think it was from 2020, this one, for example. So any reference for a CVE, and you can audit like that. It's telling you that,
called
okay,
JP
you are
Men's,
good.
I believe, Ansible. When I
In
first
this case,
started
since
it,
I have not
yeah,
all
he
the
wrote
packages
a
synchronized for AMA9,
story
it's
saying
telling you that it can
Ansible
process
is a configuration item that
the
you can
scan
manage
on
completely.
this, but these other two are
Unfortunately, GLASS doesn't give you that same format.
as I told you
Jason has,
as well,
but
in
Jason
that
has
we
a
are
lot of
building
metadata
images.
inside it,
If we
which
go
we
to
use for other
audit
purposes
images,
as well.
then we would see the different images that we are building
Quick raise
completely
no,
and in the
but
same
if you
way
use
that we saw
documentation and a little bit of
that
step,
we
which
are
you might
good,
find on
we
the
might see that, okay, we
read
need to
docs,
rebuild
there's a
the
way of
image,
just
it
saying,
would
here's what
provide a
failed with the
button,
title, so you
you
can get to
click
it
on
really
it,
quickly.
and then the
And
image
obviously, if
is
you want
going
to
to
put
be
codes around
rebuilt,
it, it's just
getting
a
the
little
new
bit of code. It's not
packages with the update fixed
difficult.
on it.
That answer the question?
All right.
Excellent. Any more?
We have
Yeah,
OpenSCAP as well.
so
I
I'm
ran a
curious
couple
because
of
in Germany we have
tests
this problem
on
with a
Rocky Linux.
government regulation called BSIC5, and
As
what
you
they
see
want
here,
us to do is
it's
to prove that
basically
not only
allowing
we're
you to
compliant now, but
run,
to prove
SCAP,
that we've been compliant at
analysis,
every point in
and it's
time
going
in
to
the
provide
past.
you with
And
the
where
results.
have we not been
And it's
compliant,
also
and for how long?
providing you,
Is
the report
this
with
something
all
you
the
were
tests
already
that
looking at
executed
with that
and all the
fancy
stuff.
web UI? You
So
kind of
this is also
shown us
something
to
that
show
you
that,
can do
okay, maybe
for
we run checks daily, and we can show in a little red on the timeline
CLM is also worth to
that,
see.
oh, maybe this time we
This
weren't
is
compliant?
what I
Or is
told
that
you,
something
that you
that's
can
not a
define
topic
the
with the
different
regulations that you have to
stages
deal
of
with?
your
And
pipeline.
let's just see if we can find out how
So
this
you
table
get the
works again.
packages in a
Laptop back.
development channel.
Right,
that
I'll show
you
you
can
really quickly.
use
So,
in development, and at some
from-
point when developers are okay, you can just promote those packages to a testing stage, then the QE. I mean, these are just trivial names. You can use whatever
I don't know how I'm meant to deal with this
as
one,
much
sure.
as the stage as you want.
Sorry,
But the
I'm straight
idea,
my screen
and
back.
if you go here to one of those, is that you define
Yeah.
some sort of channels, and then you can apply filters on those. Like, for example, let's have a look at here. Let me just add a new filter. You can just filter based on
So,
patches,
it's not even the screen.
packages.
It's not even the screen I wanted, so I don't know why I did that.
And then those filters that you create here are going to define a subset of packages, and then you build your different stages.
The problem
Each
is you
one
can
of
read
those
that much easier on the
stages
screen.
are actually software channels that we have and that we can assign to systems. So we can have our testing systems that are assigned to the testing stages, and then our production servers to the production
now, again, I was
channels,
suggesting
etc.,
to
etc. And it's just up to us
but
to,
on the system, and I'll
once
show you in a
everything is
second, you
verified,
could
to
actually use
promote
Ansible to set up a cron
what
job
we
to
have
run using
here
the same settings
to the
and
next,
gather the data
right?
back. So the little
For
thing I
example,
didn't
let's
show you,
do like this,
which
and
you
it's going to
did see a little
promote
bit, right?
whatever is
Click
in
on the screen,
development to
is that
testing.
you can pull that
And as
information
soon
and have
as
a
this is
timeline
built,
to see how compliant it's been over time.
all the
It's one of the things we're very aware of. I do
channels
speak
for
to quite a lot of people on different areas,
my test
so you can
project
see what's
are
compliant,
going to
what's
get the
compliant over time.
packages that were
But
in
again, if you want to
development,
do it yourself,
and
there's
so on
nothing
and so
stopping you from using Ansible, set up a cron job, and then run a cron, log in every few hours and bring it back to a
Another
local
thing that I just
centralized
wanted to
location
show
so you
you
can
as
go
well,
through your
I
script.
think I have
Does that
it
answer your
here,
question?
is the Ansible.
I'll show you how to do it on here
This
really
is just
quickly,
kind of
just if I
an
can.
initial proof of concept that we have
Again,
this
if I
is
can
work,
find my
and we
mouse.
are actually planning now to
I'm
enhance
just going to be
this
really cheeky.
much more, because this was just the initial step we did on this regard. In any case, summarize what you do here. So this system I set as an Ansible control node. And this is basically allowing me to playbook directories on
oh
this
yes, I have
where
just got the box now. Well done, well remembered.
And it's also allowing me to add inventory files that are on the host.
Well remembered.
Once we have this set, and of course we can add as many as we want for both playbook as inventories. If we go now to playbooks, for example, we can go here.
Oh really? Okay. Either way, you go to opt. You can just go to opt, and there's the run Ansible, run all the scripts. So I'm
this
opt,
one, and
and
of
then
course, is allowing us to execute this or to run this
and the
playbook.
file directory is a template that
You can
Ansible
select
copied
the
across.
inventory if it's
So you
applied.
can
In
use
this
the
case,
same
it's not
variable
necessary
again
because
every
it's a
time.
local connection. But
Again, I would suggest
again,
you
you
probably
have
did
playbooks and you have inventories, and then you can run those playbooks on those
tweaking it so
different
Mr. Audit comes along and says everything is good all the time.
As I told you before,
but that's
all
great.
different actions in
Last question?
Uyuni, you can schedule it on a particular time, or you can also make them to be part
So
of
we have about 100 repos. Sorry?
the same
Oh,
way
sorry.
from the
So the question is, what's the blocker for us moving to collection? So
it's parsing the inventory.
it's something we want to do,
It's also for this
but we
particular
have,
inventory, for
so
example,
Debian is Debian 10,
it's
11,
an
12.
Ansible inventory that
Red
is
Hat
managing
is
a
6,
couple
7,
of
8,
hosts.
9.
Some of those hosts are already
We've got
registered as
CIS
a
and we've got
manager,
stick.
like this.
How do
Some
we group
other
those
hosts are
collections? We
actually
can't keep them as
so
a
this
role
is
as they
also
are,
allowing
just
you
call
to
them a
trigger
collection.
bootstrap on
Do we
those
group them to
directly.
CIS? Do we
So
group
it's
them
a
to
way
stick?
that
Do
we
we group
can
them to Red
have
Hat? Do we group them
systems
to
that are managed
Ubuntu?
by Ansible and that are managed by
It's a bigger question on
all in the
how,
same place,
because
and
then we
be
have to
able
maintain it.
to run the different things. So if you have already, if
So
you
all the
invested
repos
already
are
time
normally
on
different
building
operating
playbooks, and now
So
you
we
want to
do
move to
different
Uni,
operating
which is
systems.
more
So Red Hat
solve-based, let's
from
say,
6
you can
to
just drop the
9,
playbooks here and
Debian 10 to 12.
interacting with them.
So all separate roles.
Good.
Yeah, so I can create a collection which
Coding
is
actions.
a role and have it as Red Hat 9 to
Let me just check.
But then people might want to have a Red Hat stick, so they have
Because
all the
I
sticks in the
think
collection.
that we are mostly
So it
running
just
out of
depends
time.
which one people want
Good,
the most,
so
and that's one of the
what
questions
else I
we've got
can
this
show
year
you
on
here?
our timeline
So
of how people want us to go further forward
this is
with
the
it. Because
part which
the
I
second we
have
make
not
that
filled,
decision,
but
that's
this
a
is the
big
part
change for
about
us to make
images.
from 100
So here we can
repositories to
define
managing.
our different
All that intuitive way.
registries, Docker files and stuff. And we can
Every
trigger the
role
build
has own
of
repo.
those Docker files, and we can have the images there
Correct.
that then are inspected by the
Correct.
CVE mechanism and are going to be also part of the rest of the or that are going
Yes.
to be
I hear what you're saying.
fed by the packages that are coming from the channels that we are managing here.
Maybe we'll talk afterwards and see where we get the answer.
The analysis that we do.
No, so I'm all up for using collections. I really want to move to collections and saying it for the last couple of years. And as another reason, we want to use the Ansible sign product
I
as well
think
to make
I'm
sure
running
that
out
people
of
see the
time,
sign
so there is a
collections.
couple
So
of
there's
more
more
minutes
benefits
that we
using
can
smaller
use
tooling
maybe
that John was
for
talking about today, Dumbly,
questions.
to make sure we get that coming through. So Ansible
Okay,
sign
this is
drives
not
things
the
up, and
beginning,
if you
but
know,
let
you
me
actually
just
sign
go
the collection,
there.
and it's almost certified against what you put in to say, when we received it, it's in the correct state. So when you download it, it's in the correct
So
state.
this was so there,
So that's one of the things
one
we
thing
need
to be
There's a
clear
few
here is
other
that the Uni is doing a lot of
nuances we're trying to
stuff.
put in and
It
maybe
has
put it
the
into the
part
Red
of
Hat
the
ecosystem as well, so we can
managing
put
your software
collections
channel
inside the
packages and so
platform.
on. But it's
So there's a
didn't
few
went
other
into the
internal
utilization part,
discussions
for
we've got to have
example.
around how we do it.
Neither I
But
went
it
to
is
the,
definitely very much on our
how you
radar
can
for
bring the
collections.
instances that you have
Does that help?
in your public cloud, like Nutanix,
So I couldn't be
EC2,
clearer, but there's a lot of little
and bring those
nuances for us to try
instances
and move
here
around
to
and
Uni, so you
navigate.
see them. You
Any
have
more
the
questions?
inventory, and if you have those instances as well registered
No?
in Uyuni, then you can
So I
just
think we're
operate,
just about
operate
coming to
them
the
as
end
they
of
were
the
being
show.
will be on
Is there anything else anyone wants to see or go through or
I'm not doing
explain?
any
or-
example of bootstrapping a new system now because I don't want to have the risk now, and I'm missing some packages to do that.
Go ahead.
But yeah, hopefully you have a little bit more idea what the thing is, and if you want, for sure, just give it a try. That might help you as it's helping us and our customers as well on the SUSE side to solve their daily operation and configuration.
I'll be really honest with you. CIS made a massive change between CIS and RHEL 9, version 1 to version 2. They went from 6 sections to 7 sections. They moved all the numbering around. They started putting NIST controls in it as well, so we started to add NIST controls as tags. So everything's tagged. If you want to use CTI identifiers or NIST, they're all available to you. But we are pretty working the day in, day out. You cannot say there's no one's going to migrate. You can't migrate. Your post file not going to work. Your variables aren't going to work. you need to go back and reapproach it. There's some things that are completely out of our control, unfortunately.
That was
But
actually one of the main
you're not the only
reasons
one
why
saying
we
that.
tried
If you
to
look
put
a lot of
Ansible
forums
there,
around people
because
communicating.
people out there is using
Another one
Ansible.
you'll see is
We
who uses true and false,
force
bin
them
true, bin
to-
false.
to really migrate to
Anyone
some-
use that in your telling of modules and bits and
we can
pieces?
try
You
to
ask
bring
them, make
them
sure the
to
module
our
doesn't
site,
load.
right?
So one of the options
But
is that
yeah,
you can
and
put
as you
in
mentioned, on
mod
the source
profile that
tags
says
inside,
bin
there have
true
been
or
a
bin
lot of
false.
disruption,
Yeah.
let's say.
Now,
It seems that the
anyone
things
tell me what
are
happens for bin false
calming
in?
down. I mean,
Any
there was
bigger
the
system?
VMware acquisition,
No?
the Broadcom,
So if you choose to put bin false in, your system will come up saying there was an error off boot
move
time.
around and stuff, but they are still there.
Now,
There is
the
a
standard
compromise
documentation says to put in
from
bin
Broadcom that they want to
false.
continue with
Now,
the
we tend to put in
Salt
bin
project.
true,
And
because if I get a
that's what
box
we
come
have
up, I want to make sure that box is booted
For
with no
now, I
errors.
cannot tell you more.
And that discussion's been going on for 8 years so far. Where it's going on. I don't have the link handy, but there's a lot of discussions going on around how automation and
It's not really
compliance
easy
is
to move away
and things are
from
being done.
Salt in this
There's a lot of
case
feedback
because
from the
all
community.
the action executions are built on
Any more
top of Salt,
questions?
so it would be like a rebuild of the whole unit.
Fantastic, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks, everyone. So in 5-10 minutes, we'll be Fabio will be talking about simplifying container orchestration. I'll be in there, yeah, and in the upper comparing. And in the upper Ansible room, which is a couple of doors down, comparing Ansible development.
I had a job at the police, so we did work compliance as well. I can mention the name.
Yeah, I've got the X1, anything else?
I even looked at Ansible lockdown. The bundle.
This is an X1 and afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I just have 2 USB. I've got a headphone and 2 USBs. There are no wristbands.
Oh, they're not?
So.
We just go
We'll
there.
just go.
Yeah, we go there and get beer.
I like them.
Right, don't we just tell them?
I think so.
I'm with Conflict Camp, give me beer. Grab my arm.
What did you say? Simple company?
Yeah, but you can't go across the street because the exit is a motorway. No, normally you go the main building, down there, and then you go outside the building. Oh, brilliant. Anything we can do to make this flow.
It's
On the website,
I'm just conscious that I've got private roads and public roads.
Yeah, they did
So I have to private roads.
yeah, normally when tram run, but it doesn't do now because of road.
But when you get around not charging
Or did the tram run?
I go, what about we give you them?
Yeah, that's good, but then
not really losing out.
you didn't use that entry.
Just drawing out
here, I guess.
find the balance.
Yeah, that is always good.
But I'll take you. Oh, you're superstar. Thank you very much.
Because there is a way to.
Yeah, but normally we have a very short route.
sign
But we now need to take a bit of a detour to get
add
there.
and the label are going to be front-side label. You have to verify the procedure and then break if it doesn't
Go there and tell them.
I'll send you
Definitely. Thank you very much.
We suspect that Goshan was more injured that we will be there during the next hour. Halfway that talk, we will go over there and make sure that people that arrive there. Our audience is done. There is one. Ja, dat kan ik ook zeggen. Dat is puur die dictie, die kaart sowieso. Ja, I know. I'm kind of showing. Dan wil je ook staan.
voor die maar niet van elkaar. Interlogen bij Ansible hij zegt time-out de hele tijd.
You all set? Yes. No, I think I need to be like
I'm at the forum. No, that's a QR code. Ja, maar jullie hebben een vakantie. I love the way it yeah, should do. That's not the problem. I tried to do it on my phone. Try on the laptop. I used the Euro QR code. I have it on my phone. Okay, yeah, I don't have that. I haven't been there.
Yeah, so you need to scan the QR code. Right?
Oh, okay.
We're very deliberately not giving people the URL if you don't want to
Sign in when you get up.
That is very annoying because the
Yeah, GitHub sign-in is broken. So you're broken as well, huh?
Yeah, I understand.
No, but it's something that you think about.
Yeah.
You're getting a logout? Log in?
Uniformize it.
Yeah? Yeah, with an eigen account.
Maybe that's what we'll do.
Ja, dat was ik ook, maar ook dan weten. Ja, maar je hebt een eigen account, dus die GitHub.
What do I need to do now? Thank you for participating in
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, because I'm automatically logged in. As soon as I open one forum, then I'm logged in. I can't sign in because I sign in with GitHub broken.
Looks like people are still changing
GitHub broken.
We'll start in about 5 minutes, folks. I think there's still a lot of room change over.
I'm signed in on GitHub. That's me. So this should be good. And here I sign in, it's just...
Few links as well.
Sign up? Yeah, then I have to make a separate account. Which I don't want. So I find the account with everything.
Yeah, but now the other way around is everything is connected to Microsoft. Microsoft said, well, you can't do that anymore.
Use a bunch of proprietary tools.
That's not that, then it's not right.
You can also try with Google. Use the AT.
Use the AT account.
Oh, you can just say, share all my secrets with them. Yeah?
Yeah, please do.
And it fails as well.
Oh, that's not good.
So I'm going to sign up. I'll make a new account. That way.
Yeah, but if you're teaching Ansible, it's a good idea to show them the forum.
Shall I do personal or work related?
In my case, it doesn't matter. It's my life.
Oh, my username is still
Hey,
it doesn't steal that one.
I'll cross my fingers. They're picky about HDMI splitters. Okay, let's have a go.
No, wait a minute. You need the hardest word. Welcome, ABCD. Ansible.com. 1, 2, 3, 4.
24 characters. Amazing.
Now I know your password.
Yeah, you can read it in yellow.
Yeah, if I could remember it.
And it's gone.
It just wants me to select something.
Sometimes the clipboard doesn't work. No, there's not a problem. You can't copy it.
If mirror, so it does want me to mirror.
Before that?
Yeah.
I think I've just got to press
They
the
go
right
to
button.
BIOS and say swap.
Okay.
Turning this off and on again. Just need to swap the screens over. I don't know. Swap displays. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I want to switch.
I can tell you where QR codes.
Does this one not support QR codes?
Cool. All right. Thanks, folks. Got Fabio joining us today to talk about how to simplify your orchestration with Ansible and Command. Richie.
Thank you. So today we are going to discuss a little bit why should we do this, first of all, because let's start in the right way. Then we will see how we can automate containers with Ansible, obviously. The first approach is what someone can assume from the documentation. There is also an alternative approach, and then we'll discuss a little bit about SE Linux as well as Kubernetes objects. And then also we'll wrap up and do some conclusions out of that. So about me, I've been working in IT for the last 20 odd years. I've been very involved into the open source space. At the moment I do sit in FESCO, which is the Fedora Engineering Steering Committee. And I've been an Ansible users for 10 plus years. And I've also contributed over the course of years, at least a little bit to the community as well. And I do work with Red Hat. So why is this a thing? The problem, so usually every time people say container, they also think about Kubernetes. That's the go-to solution to any container problem, and sometimes even not even containers problem. The problem with Kubernetes is, first of all, it's heavy. So the overhead that you will have to run your containers is very high. Second point, it's complex and it does have a steep learning curve, which might not be what you're looking for. And the third problem that it has is that it's complex. Even people that have a lot of experience with Kubernetes still have issues sometimes with it, because it's a very complex piece that starts from the point that is it has potential agreement on the state of the cluster, so everything is complex around that.
Okay.
Now, let's be very clear. There are problems that are Kubernetes-shaped problems. So if you have one of those, you should not try anything else but Kubernetes. One case is if you need to provide a container as a service solution to someone else. In that case, probably, well, at least probably, Kubernetes is the solution. Very, very probably. Second option is if you need deployment that auto-scale horizontally. So horizontal auto-scaling means that you are now running one pod, and then you want to run 2 on 2 different machines, 5 on 5 different machines. And if you want the machine, the system, to orchestrate this for you, probably you need Kubernetes or a similar tool. And the third aspect is the auto placement. So if you need to have an intelligence somewhere that is able to schedule a pod on one specific machine or another machine, then you will need something like Kubernetes. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of use cases where those three are not criteria that are important for you. Because a lot of times you just need to run a bunch of containers on a bunch of machines and that's it. And for all those cases, Kubernetes might not be the best solution for you. So we can have Ansible helping with us. Ozzy, if you are here, I assume that you all know what Ansible is. Is there anyone that has no idea what Ansible is? No? Perfect. You are in the right room. So Ansible can help you with this. There is Podman, that is a tool. You can use Docker if you want, but let's say that you are going to use Podman, because Podman has a few advantages, and we'll see it over the course of the whole presentation as well. But one of the core points is that Podman is like Docker, but it's daemonless and ruleless, which means that you don't have a daemon to take care of, and you don't need root. That does not mean that you cannot run it as root, you can, but that's not a hard requirement. And also, it has been recently donated to the CNCF, so we are talking about a fully foundation-based open source project. It was previously developed by Red Hat, but now Red Hat is still developing it, but is owned by the CNCF. Some key features that are going to be interesting for us. First of all, the fact that it is fully compatible with the Docker CLI, so if you are used to that, that's perfect. You can still do exactly the same commands. Second aspect is that it does support OCI containers, which means that any container that is an OCI container will be able to run properly on Podman. And the third aspect is that differently from Docker itself, you can actually run Kubernetes objects on Podman, which means that if you have a Kubernetes definition of a pod, for instance, that thing will be able to run on Podman. So those are interesting points that will be also the basis on why Podman instead of Docker, for instance. And the way you can automate very easily this thing, if you read the documentation, is with the Ansible module for Podman, which are the containers.podman. Those are 29 modules and 3 plugins, so you have plenty of tools to do that. And the logic behind it could be that the workflow could be you use Ansible to deploy and manage containers with Podman, and also you use Ansible to start, stop, and potentially update containers. That seems an approach from the documentation. I think that that approach can be okay for certain use cases, but it will probably not be okay if you want to run long-term, long-lasting services within containers, because then obviously as soon as you restart the machine, that does not work anymore. So you kind of need something more than just this. So what I would like to propose to you today is an alternative approach. The alternative approach starts with the addition of a couple more tools to the one that we have already discussed, and the first one is systemd. So systemd is probably already on your machine, in the sense that it is in all the major distributions. There are some distributions that are do not contain systemd, so if that's the case for you, that's a little bit more complex. But if you are on any enterprise Linux version, any Fedora, Debian, or Ubuntu, and many others, you already have systemd. Now, what is systemd? Systemd is a service manager for Linux, which basically means that it manages services. So it controls system processes, services, dependencies. It does all the things that you would expect from a tool to actually run services on a machine. In fact, systemd is also known as B.1. And the reason for it being B.1 is because it's the first service that gets started after the kernel, and then it will start every single service on your machine. It replaces other init systems. In the past there was CSP init, there was Upstart for a short period of time. Systemd is now considered the default instead of those. And some interesting features from our perspective is that obviously it's made to manage long running services. Also, it does support dependency management, so we can declare that one specific service will need one or more other services to be already running at any given moment in time, and also supports auto restarts, so if something crashes, it can be restarted. And also, it provides robust logging, monitoring, and everything else you would usually need if you are running long-term services. Now, that's normal because the whole point of the system is to run long-term services. And also, it allows custom extensions to itself. So it does have a configuration management, configuration file format, but you can actually extend it and do interesting stuff with that. So why systemd for container management? First of all, it does enable native services alike for containers. And second, it does simplify all the parts of the startup, shutdown, restart of services. So effectively, it does provide us a lot of the features that usually Kubernetes provides to us for the containers. But we need to remember that systemd is always running within one machine. So we have to deliberately say to that specific machine, you are going to run those containers, and systemd will be able to do it for us. But those containers will not move to another machine, maybe if the first one crashes or something. So that stuff is something that you need to take care of, and you need to control and manage. So there is another aspect, another component, let's say, even if it's not really a component anymore, which is Quadlet. Quadlet is a systemd helper for Podman. This is how it was described into the documentation. And the fact is that it does extend systemd to simplify the creation of systemd units, which are the configuration files for systemd, to run containers. And it does allow then us to manage containers as if they are services, normal system services. And technically, Quadlet does not exist anymore because it has been merged into Podman, one part and systemd into the other part. So technically, it does not exist anymore, but it's very easy to still find the name Quadlet if you are looking for it in for documentation sake of it on Google or those kinds of things. So what are Quadlet's key features? First of all, it does use the declarative configuration for the container management. It does support auto restarts and dependencies, because technically it's not Quadlet itself, it's systemd that does it. And also, it enables that integration between containers and services, which means that you can have, for instance, let's say an application that is running into a container, but still requires some dependencies that are not other containers, but are services running on the host machine. And you can do it, and also you can mix and match it however you want. So like you can also have a service running natively on the machine that depends on a container, or on another service that is running within a container on the same machine. So that is very flexible. Why Quadlet and not other approaches? First of all, it's very simple. It removes all the complexity of configuring systemd, Podman, and everything else in between. And it does reduce the complexity and the manual stuff that you have to do in the process. Also, it's ideal for those long-term persistent, let's say, containers. Now, very basic example on how it looks like a configuration file to run a container from systemd with Quadlet is this one. So it's a mighty 3 lines of ini file. So you first declare that you are in the container space for the system configuration. You provide a name for it and an image. And you will be able to run that container as a service in systemd with just it. Now, actually, you also need those couple if you want to be able to enable it and run it, for instance, at boot and those kind of things. But still, it's within 5 lines. So I would say it's fairly straightforward. So if we have this file that clearly allow us to run a container as a service, then what could be the strategy to run containers with Ansible on machines? So my strategy is, first of all, place the file. the one that we have just discussed. Second, reload systemd demons. You will have to do this thing. That is how systemd works. And third, start and potentially enable the daemon, and you are set. So this feels a little bit more reasonable than the previous approach to me. So let's see what Ansible code actually that maps to. So this is the code, at least. Well, it's not too big, but the first one is ensure the container launcher is up to date. So effectively, we are dropping that file that we have seen into /etc/container/systemd/ whatever your service name is .container, and we will provide it some permission settings. So effectively, on by root, group root, and 644. So basically, only you can change it. This is up to you. If you want all your users to change your system units, go for it. Not very suggested. I also register immediately the systemd daemon variable. So basically, it has a file being placed there or modified there, so that you can then restart services potentially, and also notify the restart service that is defined as this. So effectively, it's just the built-in.service, which is the way you would handle systemd operations, and say that you want it to restart. And then the third thing that we do is ensure that the service are started and enabled, and we have the reload systemd daemons first if needed. So if we have changed something in the first step, then we are going to reload the daemons. And then the third step is that we ensure that the service are started and running and enabled. So effectively, we will be doing state started, enabled through. So we are not doing anything too complex here. And also, as you can see, the code is very independent from the container that you want to run. Let's put it this way. So the only dependent parts will be the name of this service, and the name here of my service and here. So if you put variables there, then it becomes fully independent of the specific container that you want to run. Now, this is basically a very easy way to run a container. There are a few things that you can do in addition to this, because so far we are just running a container as a service and nothing more. But we have discussed about dependencies, for instance. So how can we inject dependencies into this? A nice part about how the whole systemd/codelet thing works is that you can inject into the codelet configuration any systemd configuration. So the way you do it in systemd is this one: unit, and then and then you put whatever services you want to be sure that have already been started before your service starts. And you can simply add those 2 lines to the 5 lines that we discussed the few slides before, and it will just work. Obviously, remember to reload the daemons every time. Otherwise, you will find weird behaviors. Another aspect is that very often, when you run a container, you want to pass a number of environmental variables to that containers, because usually containers are run in a way, or are written in a way, where basically to make them useful, you will want to pass a bunch of variables there. So there are various options, but I would say the easiest one is to simply add into the container space that we already declared. That was where we put the name of the container as well as the image. You can pass the environment variable and then the key and the value that you want to be present into the container. Now, if you have more than one, you simply add more than one line to that. You can absolutely do that. They are not rewriting each other unless also you have the same key, but you should not have the same key for 2 different variables. Now, if you are running a service, probably you will want to expose a port. That's a fairly standard way of running services, because in the end, if it's a service and it does not expose anything, probably it's not that useful. And the way you do it is this one. So effectively, you just add one more line to that container declaration where you say that you want to publish port and then equal, and then the usual Kubernetes like bindings. So effectively, the first one would be the internal port, so the port within the container, and the second one would be the port outside the container. And then you can potentially declare /TCP, which means TCP ports, or not put anything there, and then it will be both TCP, UDP, and all the rest. Now, another thing that is fairly common as well is volumes, because there is data. Things are usually not stateless. So the way to do it is, again, into containers, volume equal the external volume, and then the external path. Whoops. The external path and then internal path. Fairly straightforward. Yes.
Can it be multiple?
Yes, it can be multiple as well. You can simply, declare it 10 times, and it's fine. It's like, because in the end, what really happens behind the scene is that Codelet will transform this declaration into a systemd standard unit that calls Podman plus a bunch of arguments on inline arguments. And in Podman you can have how many, well, I think there is a limit, probably 128 or 256 or something like that, number of volumes that you can connect at the same time. And the same thing applies here. So, as we know though, you should be using SE Linux, or there is this thing around that is called SE Linux. SE Linux is mandatory access control, which means that differently from the standard way of ensuring security around files, which is that you declare that this file is owned by this user and that group, and you set permissions for that user, that group, and then the others. Mandatory access control means that the administrator of the system decides that that specific file, or every file that has matches specific regex, will have special permissions or denials. And why use SE Linux? It does provide fine-grained access control, way more than the standard DAC approach. It limits damages from vulnerabilities and enforces least privilege principles, because obviously by default you cannot do anything unless you are allowed to. And that's also the reason why many people also hate it, because it does create problems sometimes if it's not well configured, obviously. So why use SE Linux? Containers do not contain. This is a reality. We have seen it multiple times. We have had containers for the last 10 years. We had, I think, 6, 7 very serious CVEs around containers, and in all those cases, the container did not contain the service, and it was possible for an attacker to actually escape the container. Now, since we are talking about containers on a Linux system, that means that if someone escapes that the container they are into the base operating system, and therefore they can attack the base operating system as well as every single other container that is running on the same machine. So, probably not the best thing. Therefore, SE Linux is important. And you should use it. Really, you should use it. For containers is even more important, because people often associate container equals security. Container is not equal security. Container is other stuff, is C groups, is ability to manage and control resources to be used or consumed, but not to have security. There are other tools for security, SE Linux is one of those. And by the way, every single CVE about the container space was completely mitigated by the presence of SE Linux. So if you had SE Linux on, you would have no issue with any of those security vulnerabilities that container had. So if you want to use SE Linux, yes.
Hardcore Rust techniques. So what are we going to talk about today? First, a little bit of context. I will show you something from the project at university, a solid use case to use NF tables.
Yes, I mean, obviously, if you're running... Yes, the question is, what happens if we run the container as a non-root user? Would that be better? Yes, it's better, unless obviously you're running more than one container from the same user. In that case, you would have the issue. And also, one of the issues in general is that even limited users often have way more power into a system that you would be comfortable with an attacker having. So, yes, obviously there are a lot of ways to mitigate security issues. There is no silver bullet here. But SE Linux has always been one of the most important ones. So, if you want to run with SE Linux on SE Linux system and you do not want to mount any volume, it's very easy because you do exactly the same thing that we did before, everything works out of the box. The only exception is if you want to mount volumes, because then you arrive into the details of the SE Linux security. So what you need to do is a couple of things. First of all, create the volumes of the that you want to mount. Podman will not be able to mount a volume that does not exist. So your path needs to exist in the first place. Podman will not create it for you. So remember to create it beforehand if you want to use it. And second, what you do is simply create a rule for systemd, so that is for SE Linux, so that is aware that that specific folder will have the correct tagging, which is a container kind of thing. And another thing you have to do is to actually add a column Z to the volume mount. There are also other flags that you can add, read-only flags or other kind of flags. So that's a very interesting thing. But in the SE Linux case, there is the Z. Actually, there are two, because there is capitalized Z and lower cap Z. The big difference between the two is that if you use the big cap Z, capitalized Z, when the pod starts, that mount points will be retagged with the correct SE Linux tags for that run. If you use this one, it will not be retagged. So you have to ensure that it's already correctly tagged. So if it's like a container that just starts, it can be okay with capitalized Z. It's easier. If you have to use something more complex, then the lowercase z is the correct one. Now, if we go to a folder, let's say that I have those three services, and I keep them in /var/opt, and I do create one folder for every service, because then I want to mount those folders for the various containers I have. And if you do ls with --capitalized Z, you will get the SE Linux tags of files or folders. So, and are those, to be clear. And as you can see, we have before declared that it was a container file T, so the tag was container file T, but we do actually have a little bit more stuff here. The reason why we have more stuff there is because at every single container launch, Podman will create one of these, so S0, C, blah blah, comma C, something else, which basically is, so SE Linux is multi-level security, multi-category security. So S0 means all levels for a specific set of category, and C whatever is a category. So effectively, we are creating one category for every container, which means that whatever happens in that container user that escaped the container somehow will never be able to exit from that SE Linux category. So it's another layer of security. So going back to the question about what if we use different users, that's perfect. But this will give you another layer of security, and obviously, the more layer of security you have, the better probability you have that you don't get compromised. So, interesting enough, as I say, every time you run a container with capitalized Z, a new category gets created, everything gets re-tagged for that specific category, so everything works, but no other container will be able to read your files, which might be okay in some cases, or maybe in other cases might not. Let's say that you have two containers that have to access the same disk or the same volume. In that case, obviously, it will not work. So, how to do it? You can do a share access container, which simply you declare into the usual file container security level equal S0. What it will create is, well, also, as you can imagine, shared access is not very good for security, but in this case it's very not good for security, because what it will create is this kind of thing, where basically it's only S0, which means that every single category every single process associated with every single category will be able to access your files, which means that in this case, all those other services will be able to read that fourth service folder, while the service 4 will only be able to read its own one, because the others have the category specified. So this might be okay for your use case, but probably is not. There is a better approach for this, and the better approach starts with what is called basically tagging directly with a specific set of categories, so that effectively it does ensure that only those will work. So if we do this, and you have to do it in all containers that have to share obviously the files, not only on one, and it will need to be the same string. Basically, you are setting one specific string to every single container that have to share files, and SE Linux will be happy because it's the same string. So the way it would look like is something more like this, like Service 5, where you have 514, and that was exactly the same one as Service 3. So in this scenario, what we will have is that Service 3 and Service 5 will be able to read each other's folder. None of the other services will be able to read those folders. In the other hand, as before, Service 4 is will only be able to read its own folders, but everyone will be able to read Service 4 folder. So you need to be aware of this, and the solution of using this last one is the suggested one, because maybe today all your containers are okay to read one specific volume, but maybe tomorrow you will run one more container that should not be. So it's better to use this approach, so that you are setting in a positive way, not in a negative way, the permissions. So, Kubernetes objects. Yes, your question.
From there to the destination address, and we accept.
You made it up. Simply enough, because whatever you declare here will be exactly the one that is going to be executed every single time for that container. So if you don't declare anything, Podman will create one by its own, but if you declare one, that one will be used.
Tables consists of the IDX stands for IP tables, IP6 tables, ARP, so you can also use this tool set on ARP, and EB tables for the bridging. And also what is missing here is IP sets, so you could use that, for example, to block all the...
Okay, so the question is, can you make one share folder and one non-share folder? Yes, you can. It's a little bit more complex because you will have to provide multiple
instead of having different commands,
categories for one container and only one category for the other container, and then properly tag the volumes that need to be shared with the category that is shared and the ones that are not shared with the other category. So it can be done. SE Linux is very powerful. The annoying part of it is that the tooling for debugging the problems are not that user-friendly. So you need to be sure that you know what you are doing, you have read enough the documentation to actually do it correctly at the first pass. Just because debugging it is
As for
annoying.
persistence, this is not really native to either of those. So in
how can we ensure that the category is free? So it's basically, if you are setting all the categories yourself, then you are the one assuring that they are free. If Podman, when Podman starts, it checks that the category that is going to be used, it's not used already. And also the reason why you see two numbers, in this case is C47, C514, is because you have 999 categories for every C that you declare. And if you declare it like this, it needs to be both in category X and Epsilon. So that becomes basically a 1 in a million possibility of a clash. So in theory, you check it beforehand, Podman will check beforehand, and that's how you credential.
This is on the right.
Any other questions?
In these newer versions of Linux distributions on here, this was replaced by the NF tables module.
Kubernetes objects. We have said that Podman is able to run Kubernetes objects. So can we run in the same way also Kubernetes objects in with Podlet and everything else? And the answer is yes. With another very complex systemd configuration file that, as usual, we are going to install it so that effectively we can then enable it to run as boot. And then in the cube space, we are going to put YAML equal my file or whatever your file name is .yaml. The only thing to be aware of is that the YAML file in this case needs to be in the same directory as the container file. So be sure to place it in /tc/systemd/system as well. Otherwise it does not work. And the way it looks like is a normal Kubernetes object. This is a pod declaration. In this case for HA proxy, you will have, this is the name of the container that you want to run. This is the image, ports, volumes, and potentially you can have more than one container running in the pod, and everything works. Also, remember to declare volumes if you want to run them, otherwise also they will not work. But it's very straightforward. Also, this allows us to have, let's say, a Kubernetes configuration, because maybe, let's say that I have a software that sometimes is deployed on Podman, other times I deploy on Kubernetes, but I want to be sure that they look the same. So effectively what you can do is just have those Kubernetes configurations, and then sometimes you apply them with kubectl, other times you apply them with Podman and Quadlet. and it will look exactly the same. Also, you can automate kubectl via Ansible, you can automate this stuff via Ansible as we described. So with Ansible, you can simply have maybe a variable or something like that in this system you are going to deploy it as Kubernetes, in the other one as Podman.
So you can just pipe a JSON file in a specific schema to NF tables. So it
can you also specify the Linux here stuff here? Yes, you can. As Linux is also supported in Kubernetes. So all the things that we discussed before, it's also through here, with a couple of exceptions about how exactly you specify the categories. Because the way it works into the Kubernetes space is that a pod will get its own category set. So all volumes declared within a pod will be seeable, visible from any container within the same pod. So you don't need to play with categories and that kind of things. If you want to have two containers that see the same volume, you will simply declare them, one here and one just after that one, and they will both see that volume.
Of course, it does require NF tables to do something. So basically, you use NF tables RS to model
other questions?
It will then generate to JSON
Perfect.
and apply that.
So wrapping up, first of all, Kubernetes is good for Kubernetes shared problems. That's fine. There are a lot of non-Kubernetes shared problems. In those cases, Ansible and Podman can be great to run containers. And also, it's a very straightforward solution. I think that was fairly clear, hopefully. Any questions? Also, there is a QR code for this presentation. After this slide, there is another slide with a few links if you want to, to be able to click around stuff for documentation and so on. And you will be able to download the slides there. Also, I will upload them on the conference website as well.
And improve our own documentation from this project.
Now that you teased us so badly,
now still working on the
because we template with Ginger for a long time those system units
to create
which
an
do then the
IP-based
access around Podman, and it kind of works, but it's ugly, and then
so we run Rust code.
So to get that basically rolling for us as a user, we don't need a new system D version, right? Because it's not in system D natively, right?
So the question is, to use everything that we just discussed, do we need something different, such as a new systemd version or something like that? Yes and no. Yes, you will need a new systemd version, but it's already available in RHEL 8, RHEL 9 will be RHEL 10. It's available in every supported Fedora versions. I would say at least the latest version of Debian is there. Ubuntu, at least last couple of releases is there. So yes, even though you will need a relatively new version of systemd, it's not the last one. It's like I think as long as it has been released in the last year and a half, it's okay. So if you have your system reasonably up to date, you are fine. You can rapidly do it.
But for RHEL, you backported that
to JSON with
RHEL, we backported it.
And then just pipe it
yes, and also we updated stuff. So
rule set active.
As long as you have the latest version of RHEL 8 or RHEL 9, whatever you are running, you are set.
So I mentioned the NAMI project.
Do I need anything else except systemd? Yes, you need Podman.
Going to expect anybody to use it on the home router anytime soon, also because
the latest version of Podman, no. Same thing. It's like roughly 1.5 years ago. As long as you have roughly an up-to-date version of systemd and Podman,
this automation framework with NAMI, but it will not recognize any devices. Right? There's simply
probably you already have it. Yes, you're simply not leveraging it.
So we built this for the microsegmentation. Also we mentioned Podman.
Yes.
Using RS as a backend since 2023 and with Fedora.
So if we have Docker files, is there a way to convert it to systemd units? I would say no, because you don't need to. Because a Docker file is made to create container images, we are just running container images. We assume that you have already created the container image however you want, with the Docker file, with the container file, with Ansible, with whatever method you usually use. You have pushed it to a registry, and then we are just consuming it. So you can continue to produce images however you were used to. Yes.
Bandwidth wins. So you would use NF tables in the setup to do rate limiting.
What about Docker Compose files? Those are at the moment, as far as I'm aware, not fully supported. But there is, it depends a little bit, because there is some support for Docker Compose style of running services. I would argue though, how many people actually use Docker Compose to run services in production?
Sequence. That's not just
because the thing is, Docker Compose is very used in common in cases where you have to run something on your laptop because it's very convenient and everything else. But if you are running in production, maybe Docker Compose is not the most stable way of running services. Yes.
Of NF tables in Rust, they used bindgen, so they were FFI binding to the native binary.
What about pool policy for services? So, I don't think I'll be able to go back that much, but into the image declaration, you can put either latest or a specific version. I strongly suggest to put a specific version, and then if you do want to update, you simply change that version to the new version that you want to update to, and rerun the Ansible playbook, and it will update the service for you.
That being said, there's still this JSON schema missing, and I think this...
so the way it works is that, let me
verify the correctness of any implementation that interacts with NF tables. But I think from all the work that I put into NF tables RS, we can quite simply generate this JSON schema.
I can show it to you.
And
so
also I learned that the man pages may be incomplete. This is probably true for all kinds of documentation, that they may be outdated.
So the way you would have it is
integrated. I got a tip from some Red Hat engineer that I can improve my testing, my automated testing.
Since it's a different file, because you have
rootless testing
changed it
namespaces. So
here, let's say from version 1 to version 2, this is a different file from an Ansible standpoint, which means that what Ansible will do is change the file, because it's different, trigger the systemd daemon reload, which means that it will reload the daemon, and then it will also trigger the restart service, which will restart the service. And once the service is restarting, the new version will be downloaded and you will have it up.
I think differences in Kubernetes, if you don't set the image policy, it won't
yes.
fetch the latest, but this one will always fetch the latest every time.
So in this case I'm creating a chain and I'm giving the same rule.
So the question is this different from Kubernetes that has refetch policies? No, it's not different. The thing is, here is different because we have set it explicitly, the version. And that also works with Kubernetes. If in Kubernetes you explicitly say version 1, it will go for version 1. If it has version 1.5, it will renew and repull the information. Now, the reason you usually don't see it is because people usually use column latest, which I think is very bad practice in the first place.
But this is just referring the image tag.
Yes.
You can update the image with the same tag.
For this project, I think
yes, you can. You should not. But you can do whatever you want with containers and tags. But
if I restart the service, will it always refetch
the same tag? It will not refetch the image. The assumption is that you change the tag every time you change the image. If you are reusing the tags, it's like using latest. That's not a good practice because you then have no assurance that maybe you have, let's say, 3 instances of the same service, all running version latest, but you have no assurance that they are running the same version.
Yeah, but you could tag it stable and you cannot automatically update it.
But you have the same problem. Then you have 3 versions of the service that are running the stable version, but they are 3 different versions. which is probably not what you want.
set of NFTables test data
Depends.
that is
If you want
valid,
to say your service should always run the latest, then you use
NFTables and
Ansible to restart
use
the
that
service, and you don't need
for
to use
NFTables
that.
RS.
Well,
What some people do.
the question is, can you simply put latest and then have Ansible restart the service and then have a policy that forces it? Yes, you can do it, but there's a problem there. Unless you restart Ansible with Ansible or with other tools, the service every 5 minutes, you have no guarantee that you are running the latest version, which is not probably what you want.
So there's a giant diagram of how a packet flows through your system.
Can you remove the image and then it refreshes? Yes, you can. You can also set the policy here, force renew, but it's like tags are there for simplifying the life of people, not too complex. Yes.
And how they're doing things. And also there's BPF, Berkeley Packet Filters, and eBPF. They have a different use case than NFTables. NFTables and IPTables are strictly
yes and no. I'm used to it. That's one reason. Another reason is that I like to have things that are readable in BI, and sometimes some Ansible modules make it less readable, not more readable. But yes, you can also use the public Ansible module, which allow you basically to not write this one, but to write an Ansible-like
Any questions?
piece of code. Yes. There was a question in the back. Yes.
Does it also support the Podman networks?
Sorry, come again?
Does it also support Podman networks? Yes. You can declare it like this, or also with the module, you can also declare Podman networks as well, and you can do all the usual things that you can do with Podman. It's basically, this thing is just creating Podman commands and running it for you, nothing more. Another question on so? No?
Yeah. Okay. So.
Yes?
So if
So
you
if
would
you
run
restart Docker,
Podman
it
PS
will
as
kind
root,
of undo
and
your
you
changes to
gave
the
them all the
NFTables or
deleted
NFTables.
users
Yeah,
and the
this
root,
is
you
a common
could basically
problem.
get the overview, but
So
everything
with
is running
NFTables,
on
you can have
one host,
different tables, right? So then, as I
I
said,
think there is a flag for, the question is, if you are running Podman PS as root, would you see all the containers running no matter which users they are running on? I think there is a flag for that, because by default at least, you will see only the one that are running on the root.
your own packet rules into another table, not the same that Docker is using. So with Podman, they use Netavar.
Yeah.
They
By default, you are only seeing the pods that are running under the same user as you are issuing the command from. Yes.
adopting something like Netavar and using NFTables directly.
Sorry?
Any more questions? Okay, then you are relieved.
So,
It's time for
the non-root one you mean?
Thank you very much.
Yes. So the question is, can you do this for containers that are not run as root? Yes, you can. Obviously, you will need to place the unit in a different folder, otherwise they will run as root, those kind of things. But you can absolutely use a root as Podman as well.
Cool. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just a couple of announcements. If you are interested in SE Linux, there is a workshop starting at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. So even if you're interested in Ansible, you could go join that for a bit and then join Ansible in here. For those of you that have been here before, the zone will be happening. There's no wristbands this time. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a social event. Follow the mass exodus of people shortly. It's on whatever the main road is with a tram line in.
The question is, we need to do a review.
Yes, it is free as in there.
Yes. I think I just got it running with a coordinates using Ansible. So we need to do that.
Yeah.
That would be 12. I'm feeling very close. I didn't know about it. You know, there's a lot of
It's a feature that has not been very well
Oh yeah. That's actually stupid, but people still doing it in the old-fashioned way. I think that's
Yeah.
It works, you know, it works, and then you override by other flags. I mean, this document, I think, that's a while ago. And we basically use that, you know, in Ansible for many years.
Yeah, exactly, because I think, and this opened my eyes because I'm doing it the stupid way.
I think I just got it running.
Okay, I got to be a thing.
We just wrapped it in Ansible.
All I need to do is use it.
They give you the chocolates, yeah?
Yes.
About generating these services for the ginger saying, suffer from that. And then now we don't have to anymore.
It works, but it's like I think the worst thing is actually the multi-lines in systemd. You know?
It's yes, you have to give like trim blocks false.
And we did it because we want to have it at least a little bit, you know, you at least want to have all the volumes lined up a bit, but then it's so hacky always, you know, and that's a nice part. You have just to
John, do we have the possibility to switch on that beamer?
No, that's really great.
This is a very readable version.
Yes.
I think it's
I just
more readable
got
than
The Ansible.
Doing
the
stuff.
Ansible version.
Yeah, it agrees.
Wonderful.
Like if you.
I don't know how to turn this stuff off.
I think you pressed the correct button.
Yes.
Yeah, I've turned that off, but I...
Yeah, that's all Mark stuff. I'm not going to touch that.
No. Well, there's like buttons to stop recording and stop streaming, but it...
Kubernetes running around.
Oh, you already switched
No, that mutes on.
They're actually rolling in.
Yeah,
It
because
looks like there is a second one.
And a lot of our infra is.
there is a second?
Mike, someone was complaining that there's random noise.
Yeah, it'd be nice to like have the same.
Yeah, that's one, but it could be that there is another one. With Mark, you never know. He has a lot of those.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Just wanted to say.
It doesn't virtualize Linux. It actually like built native.
It's got full power.
Yeah.
What? You virtualize that now?
No, you don't virtualize. That's the thing.
This is the
Like,
power
you
for
think
that one.
They
That
use
can be
like
switched off
virtualization
like
layer
that.
to like run Linux
gonna
containers.
need
But
the
basically, you build your own like previous DJLs, and they're packaged with OCI like container.
Battery almost empty. Power now.
No, switch on laptop now. Come, we got.
Hold on, it's running, it's loading. Oh man. Couldn't find requested service host. It's called pop.
What again?
One.
Beer.
Hacking beer.
Hey, Philip, were you in the other room?
Starting to get a little bit sick.
Were you in the other room? How was that?
Demos with some Mac and Kotlin on that. Well, you think, hey guy, I mean, you should have Fedora running, right?
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
So how much are you working on that?
You're adapting.
Have you presented it now, but have you worked with full-time on it?
So I am not an engineer. I do stuff, engineering stuff, but I'm not an engineer.
So you build stuff now or what?
Zero,
I am a
CD.
solution architect.
We're not going home.
I am a partner solution architect.
I feel the same.
So you basically just like had that solution and like just
Yeah,
nice done.
Yes, it's yeah, there are no wristbands. Oh, you need the wristbands and then you show them and then you get
Why is it looking for a service?
Apart from the fact that there's no response because someone who made nameless that isn't me forgot them.
Yes, we know who that is. That's the one that we always keep pushing, do something, and then. But
I mean, delegate would be the main skill.
yeah, well, I think that's something for the evaluation afterwards. That Toshan has too much to do.
Yeah. Do you do know retrospectives normally? Because obviously this is mine and Don's first time being.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. It could be that Toshan blocks that, but. But I think there's too much on his plate, and that and we do things late. Like for instance, the sponsor email was less than.
Well, I mean, to be honest, Red Hat only paid for 2024 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, okay, but my boss paid weeks ago and still didn't have an email, and and it's only the two of us, and well, maybe it's only the two of us, but there are more in the same situation.
Yeah.
People need to decide how many people are we going to send, how many people do we go for speakers dinner, what do we need to arrange to get things up and running?
Yeah, no, I think there's some simple bits like there should probably just be one email address, and then it's just like a shared inbox or whatever. That
we have that, and Toshan is required/obliged. We hope that he does it, and he never does, but to send all CCs to that mailbox.
Tomorrow this will work.
Yeah, tomorrow this will work. But not during sushi. Are you going for sushi?
Beer now.
I don't know what we're gonna do tonight.
No, it's just
but maybe.
That's not like
Yeah, because Toshan and there is a group, Toshan, Chris, and
I think James will always go for sushi.
Yeah, I'm going to see what the Ansible folks do, because it's rare that we actually get the...
Yeah, we've never been, because my boss doesn't like fish.
Oh no.
So we never been.
But I assume that means you do.
Yes, I do, and he does, but our boss is not here, so we
oh,
gotta go
good.
for
Yeah,
sushi.
no, go for it.
Yeah, but you said close.
Yeah, close, yeah, but it's generating the quads, it's generating the quads for the container, generating the quads.
No, I'm going to leave those bits there, but thanks, Felix. And great presentation. You had lots of questions, which is always a good sign.
Yeah, that one I was really... I wanted to see both, but... Okay, there were several ones where I wanted to see both.
Yeah, I mean, stuff's been recorded, so...
I also wanted to see Toshans, but then I forgot that it was basically directly after my talk, and then I only realized when the next talk was started.
Is that one left?